Chapter 748. In the blink of an eye, a full week had passed since Xiaoyan had disappeared from the Bai family's sphere of influence. During this week, the Bai family and the Hua family had searched the entire mountain range, from the periphery of the mountain range to the core. The orders from the higher-ups were to find Huating if he was alive, and Xiaoyan was definitely still in the mountain range. Unfortunately, a week had passed, and the people looking for Xiaoyan had searched back and forth no less than 5 times, but they still could not find any trace of Xiaoyan. In the void, the black-clothed man had already left, and Huating had no choice but to return to the Hua family under pressure. Many people in the Hua family even thought that he had persisted because he wanted to cover up his mistake at the auction. For a time, Huating, who did not gain any favor outside and was constantly under pressure within the Hua family, fell into a state of depression because of this matter. In his heart, he was even more determined to find Xiaoyan. At the same time, in the mountain range, Xiaoyan, who was in the cave, had more or less recovered from his injuries after a week of recovery. In the outside world, the experts sent by the Hua family were also called back to the Hua family. Due to Huating's matter, they would no longer be under his command for the time being. As for the Bai family, they had moved completely to cooperate with the Hua family's actions. From the beginning to the end, Bai Ying had not given any orders to find Xiaoyan. All the actions of the Bai family experts were controlled by Huating. Now that the experts of the Hua family had been called back, the people of the Bai family naturally returned to the Hua family. In the cave, Xiaoyan slowly opened his eyes. Not long ago, he had spread out his soul strength and clearly sensed that the two families had all retreated. Although the situation seemed to be safe for the time being, Xiaoyan did not intend to leave just like that. There were always exceptions to everything. If the two families left just to bait Xiaoyan, then wouldn't he be falling into their trap if he left now? Moreover, Xiaoyan flipped his hand and took out an exquisitely crafted jade box from his storage ring. Inside this jade box was the first auction item that Xiaoyan had won in the last auction, the jade bone fruit. The jade bone fruit was able to increase the cultivation level of the person who devoured it. However, this level of increase was limited to a Band D expert. For example, the current Xiaoyan's strength had already reached the intermediate level of a 6-star Band D. If he were to swallow this jade bone fruit, his strength would once again increase to an advanced level of a 6-star Band D. Although they were both 6-star half-emperors, the gap between the middle stage and the late stage was like the gap between heaven and earth. With Xiaoyan's current strength, after using all of his techniques, he would at the very most be comparable to an ordinary middle stage 1-star Do D. In the long run, Xiaoyan would definitely be at a disadvantage. However, once Xiaoyan swallowed this jade bone fruit, his strength would increase to the late stage of a 6-star half-emperor. At that time, Xiaoyan would have the confidence to face a late stage 1-star Do D. Even if he were to face a middle stage 1-star Do D, Xiaoyan would still have the strength to fight. Of course, all of this was merely Xiaoyan's personal guess. As for the true strength, it would depend on the strength that Xiaoyan was able to erupt with in an actual battle. After taking out the jade bone fruit, Xiaoyan did not hurry to swallow it. Instead, a thought passed through his mind, and he used his powerful soul strength to call back the middle-aged man, who was still obediently guarding the entrance of the cave. "Cuckoo, sir, do you have a mission to hand over to Ah Bao since you have summoned me?" After entering the cave, the middle-aged man who called himself Ah Bao immediately bowed to Xiaoyan. His face was filled with smiles. His heart did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. This time around, his eyes did not pay attention to the northern king beside Xiaoyan. Instead, they were focused on Xiaoyan. The soul strength of this black-robed young man in front of him had already reached the level of a rank 3 alchemist. Even an elite Do D would have to be respectful when meeting an alchemist of this level. How would Ah Bao dare to be careless? If he could form a relationship with such a person, it would bring him endless benefits. Here. Xiaoyan randomly tossed it. A ray of light immediately shot toward Ah Bao. Seeing this, the latter hurriedly and carefully caught it in his hand. After which, he focused his eyes and saw that it was a round medicinal pill that had landed in his hand. This is a rank 3 medicinal pill. Seeing this, Ah Bao was immediately overjoyed. Both of his eyes revealed a deep excitement. His entire body involuntarily trembled because of the wild joy in his heart. A rank 3 medicinal pill was something that he did not even dare to think about in the past. Now that it had actually landed in his hands, how could he not be overjoyed? There is no need to be surprised. This is only your reward for this week. I still need to borrow your cave for a period of time. Once the time is up, these medicinal pills will also be yours. Xiao Yan casually said as he waved the jade bottle in his hand. Through the bottle, one could clearly see 3 round medicinal pills. These 3 medicinal pills were all rank 3 medicinal pills. Sir, feel free to use them. You can use them for as long as you want. Bao will definitely not be dissatisfied. The middle-aged man was overjoyed. Xiao Yan had taken out medicinal pills as a reward. He could not be happier in his heart, so how could he feel dissatisfied? Thinking about being able to obtain 3 rank 3 medicinal pills, Bao's heart became even more excited. During this week, although there had been many people wandering around his territory, no one had dared to come to his place. It could be said that the medicinal pill in his hand was something that he had been waiting for. He had not spent the slightest bit of effort. Now that such a good thing had been placed in front of him, Bao naturally would not miss it. My request is very simple. It's the same as this week. As long as no one can enter this place and disturb me, these 3 medicinal pills will be yours. Otherwise, sir, don't worry. With Bao here, no one can enter this place. Bao will definitely not let anyone disturb sir. Before Xiao Yan's words sounded, Bao continued to open his mouth. At the same time, he patted his chest, appearing as though he was leaving everything to him. He appeared to be quite confident. Xiao Yan raised his eyes and looked at the latter. His eyes faintly flickered, but he did not comment. Although Bao's strength could be considered as an expert in this mountain range, a mere 9-star half-emperor was already nothing in Xiao Yan's eyes. In the eyes of the 4 great clans, Bao was worthless. If Huating intended to search for Xiao Yan, Bao would definitely be unable to stop him with his strength. Bao randomly gave a couple of instructions before withdrawing with a heart filled with joy. Xiao Yan also withdrew his thoughts as his gaze once again landed on the jade box in his hand. Whether or not he could leave this place completely depended on this jade bone fruit. Chapter 749. In the blink of an eye, another month had passed. Within the Hua clan, Huating's old face was gloomy as he sat on the main seat in a large hall. Due to the previous incident, he, as the 3rd elder of the clan, had been grounded for a month. Only now was the ban lifted. At this moment, other than the gloomy Huating, there were quite a number of people in the hall. They were the various deacons of the Hua clan, and more or less had some authority in the clan. At the same time, they were also the people who had been sent by Huating to search for Xiao Yan's whereabouts a month ago. Humph, I haven't seen you for a month. How have you all been? Huating's cold eyes swept across everyone present. Every clan had its own faction. Even if they were from the same clan, these people did not always work together. For example, the people present were in Huating's faction. As for the 1st elder and 2nd elder of the clan, they also had their own factions behind them. Of course, no matter how they were divided within the clan, as long as it concerned the interests of the clan, these people would usually immediately work together. Upon hearing Huating's words, quite a number of people present looked to each other. Their expressions became awkward. They belonged to the same faction, yet they did nothing when Huating was grounded. Such a matter was indeed enough to make one feel bitterly disappointed. Humph, I don't want to care about these matters now. I only want to ask, there are so many of you. In addition to the many clan members that I sent after, why were you unable to find Xiao Yan in the end? You all must give me an answer on this matter. Huating's hand heavily slammed on the table below him. The frightening force caused the wooden table to instantly explode. The expressions on the faces of everyone present abruptly changed at this moment. 3rd elder, we did indeed search the entire mountain range back then. Moreover, we repeatedly searched 4 to 5 times. However, we did not find any trace of Xiao Yan from the beginning until the end. Perhaps he had already left that mountain range back then. Among the people seated below the stage, someone braced himself and voiced his opinion to Huating. The instant these words left his mouth, Huating's sinister gaze immediately landed on the person who had spoken. That extremely cold gaze seemed to want to forcefully freeze a person. Everyone below the stage who saw the scene shrank back in fear. Do you mean that this old man did not investigate, and that this old man allowed all of you to make this trip in vain? Gulp gulp. After Huating's words left his mouth, an invisible aura was emitted from his body and swiftly enveloped the entire hall. Everyone felt as if they were carrying a mountain. This was especially the case for the person who had just spoken. The person's entire body was unable to help but tremble. Humph, since this old man allowed all of you to search, I naturally had full confidence. Based on the situation at that time, even if that brat was not seriously injured, he could not have easily left the mountain range. However, since you were unable to find him, this means that all of you did not search carefully. There must be places that you missed in that mountain range. Huating's stern gaze slowly swept across everyone present. After meeting Huating's gaze, the majority of the people looked to their left and right with a doubtful expression on their faces. It was as if they did not understand what was going on. There were also some who were deep in thought, as if they were trying to recall if there were any places that they had missed in that mountain range a month ago. Just as Huating's gaze swept across a certain person, his gaze, which was originally about to pass by, suddenly paused. His eyes narrowed as he stared at a skinny middle-aged man in the hall. Huating's brows were tightly knitted together as he asked in a deep voice, "Huafeng, is there something that you have not told me?" No. The middle-aged man, who was called Huafeng, hurriedly stood up. The expression on his face was clearly somewhat flustered. "Humph, you're truly audacious. You dare to play tricks in front of this old man? I think that you don't want to live a peaceful life anymore." After being coldly reprimanded by Huating, the middle-aged man's face was filled with fear. His face rapidly turned pale as his gaze involuntarily looked around. In the end, when he saw Huayun, his eyes abruptly lit up. It was also at this moment that Huating noticed the change in the latter's expression. Immediately, his stern gaze landed on Huayun. "Huayun, speak. Exactly what is going on? If you don't speak, then you can forget about your position as a deacon." Once those words were spoken, Huayun's expression, which was already ugly to begin with, suddenly became frightened. He knew the meaning behind Huafeng's gaze. It was none other than the matter of Ah Bao's cave. After all, that was the only place that they had not searched. Subsequently, under Huating's unceasing pressure, Huayun had no choice but to tell Huating everything that had happened that day. "What did you say? A mere 9-star half-martial emperor actually managed to stop a deacon of my Hua clan. You even brought 2 7-star half-martial emperors with you. You really are." After listening to Huayun's narration, Huating's heart became even more infuriated. His gaze ruthlessly cut through the 3 people from that day, as if he wanted to devour them. After a long while, he finally took a deep breath, slightly closed his old eyes, and weakly said, "Pass down the order. Huayun's position as a deacon will be revoked from today onwards. In addition, he will be fined 10 spirit stones and 3 months' salary. The same goes for the other 2. In addition, they will face the wall for a month. Within this month, they are not allowed to take even half a step out of their homes." Under the terrified gazes of Huayun and the other 2, the Hua clan's guards entered from outside. They first brought the other 2 out. When they arrived at Huayun's place, the latter's entire body trembled as he knelt down. His eyes were about to split open as he kowtowed to Huating and begged for mercy. "Scram! You'd best not let me see you again, unless you want to die." Huating showed no mercy. With a wave of his sleeve, a frightening energy immediately surged out. With merely a single strike, he sent Huayun flying. After Huayun ruthlessly smashed through several walls in the courtyard, he landed on the ground with serious injuries. It must be said that this time around, Xiaoyan had escaped unscathed. Huating was truly enraged in his heart. As the Hua clan's 3rd elder, he possessed a high status and authority. Yet he had been reduced to such a sorry state by a mere brat. Not only had he failed to capture the culprit, he had even been grounded for a month. As the leader of the Hua clan, this matter had caused him to lose all face. "Right now, immediately, order people to go to Xian City and inform that bastard Lin Zhang to capture that 9-star half-martial emperor. This old man wants to personally consult him." Chapter 750. Xian City Lin Family Residence. "Humph. Old bastard. How dare you treat our Lin family like your lackeys? How dare you ask me to clean up after you, Huting? In the Lin family's meeting hall, Lin Zihong's body trembled slightly as he sat on the main seat. With a furious look on his face, he violently threw away a jade strip in his hand. Lin Ran could not help but frown when he saw this. He walked over and picked up the jade strip. Then he lifted his head to look at Lin Ziyang and asked in a puzzled voice, "Father, what happened? What did Huting say?" Lin Ran's brows were tightly knitted together as he asked this question. Since his father was so angry, it could not be anything good. Take a look for yourself. That old bastard. When our Lin family rises in the future, we will definitely destroy your Hor family to show our Lin family's might. Under his sleeves, Lin Zihong's hands were tightly clenched into fists. His veins were bulging and the anger on his face was a reflection of his inner emotions. At the same time, Lin Ran injected a trace of spiritual energy into the jade strip in his hand. Then, the information contained in the jade strip appeared in Lin Ran's mind without missing a single detail. After a few short breaths, Lin Ran's expression quickly turned dark. Deep resentment gushed out from his eyes. Huting was treating them like his lackeys. According to the information contained in the jade strip, Huting wanted Lin Ziyang to go to the Bai family's territory and capture the Beast King in the mountain range that they had searched previously. Soon, Huting would personally come over to ask about it. Furthermore, Huting had also threatened that if Lin Ziyang did not handle this matter well, he would double the tribute that the Lin family had to pay this year. This was bullying. This Hua clan is really too much of a bully. Our Lin clan has done so much for them in the past. Now they actually suppress our Lin clan, just because of a disagreement. He is clearly venting all of the anger that Xiaoyan has caused him on us. Lin Ran frowned. The expression on his face was as gloomy as his father's. No wonder they were father and son, their expressions were extremely similar. What's the point of saying so much now? We can only endure for now. The problem now is that even though the strongest person in that mountain range only possesses the strength of a 9-star half-martial emperor, that place is the Bai family's territory. This is a bit troublesome. Lin Ziyang coldly snorted. He could not help but furrow his brows. The territories of the 4 great clans usually did not interfere with each other. Even Huting was unwilling to step into the Bai clan's territory. His Lin clan was currently only a subsidiary force of the other 2 clans. If he stepped into the Bai clan's territory, he was afraid that the Bai clan would inevitably become the subject of ridicule. At that time, the 2 clans would jointly pressure the Lin clan, which would be even more troublesome. What should we do now? If we don't bring that bastard back, Huting will definitely vent his anger on our Lin family. When that happens, we will have to pay twice the salary and the Bai family. This is a huge price to pay. The Lin clan had already spent a lot of money in the previous auction. If they had to pay twice the salary now, it would definitely shake the foundations of the Lin clan. Damn it, I can't care about so much now. The Bai clan's territory is so huge, they can't possibly take care of everything. Moreover, if something really happens, we can just push the responsibility to Huting. Right now the most important thing is to capture that bastard. After making up his mind, Lin Ziyang withdrew his thoughts. Whether or not he went was the most important thing. If he was able to safely bring that bastard back, this matter would naturally end here. However, if he was discovered, the result would be the same. Therefore, it was better to give it a try and test his luck. After which, Lin Ziyang moved and flew towards the southern part of Xian City alone. That place was the Bai clan's territory. At the same time that Lin Ziyang left Xian City, a white-clothed, young man at a certain spot in Xian City also saw this scene. Immediately the white-clothed, young man gently raised his eyes. Both of his eyes stared in the direction that Lin Ziyang had left in. He hesitated for a moment before moving and following close behind. The territory of the Bai clan was extremely vast. However, it was merely so in the eyes of an elite Dodi. With Lin Zihong's speed, he had already approached the middle of the mountain range below after a long journey in less than 2 hours. Lin Ziyang, who was originally swiftly flying forward, suddenly frowned after arriving at this place. He had been busy with his journey, and was worried that he would bump into the members of the Bai clan. Hence, he did not pay attention to his surroundings. Despite this, He was still able to sense a faint aura that had been following close behind him not long ago. Although Lin Zheong had left the other party far behind due to the difference in strength between the two parties, the other party had actually caught up with him a short while later. This involuntarily caused Lin Zheong's heart to be slightly startled. He wondered if the person who was following close behind him was someone from the Bai clan. A killing intent involuntarily rose in Lin Zheong's heart when he thought of this. Judging from the aura, the other party was clearly no match for him. If this person was a bandit from the Bai clan, Lin Zheong would take the opportunity to kill him and end everything once and for all. It would also prevent him from creating any trouble. With this thought in his heart, Lin Zheong immediately flashed and hid in the mountain forest below. He withdrew his aura and waited for the arrival of that person. A short while later, there was indeed a person who swiftly flew over from the distant empty space. Just as he passed by the empty space above Lin Zheong's head, the figure paused. He frowned and looked into the distance, as though he was searching for something. A short moment later, the young figure helplessly frowned. His handsome face revealed a suspicious expression. Immediately, his body moved and he continued to fly towards the depths of the mountain range. Lin Zheong's heart leaped when he saw this person in the mountain forest below. He did not expect to meet him here. At this moment, the fluttering white-clothed young man standing in the air was the young master of the Bai clan, Bai Zhan. Why is it him? This fellow usually does not step out of his house. Why would he appear here? However, looking at his appearance just now, it seems that he did not recognize me. Otherwise, I would be in big trouble. Lin Zheong quietly said in his heart. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. However, he did not dare to relax in his heart. When he saw Bai Zhan, Lin Zheong's body no longer soared into the air. Instead, he chose to move quickly in the forest below in order to avoid meeting Bai Zhan. On the other side, after Bai Zhan confirmed that he had distanced himself from Lin Zheong, his body paused in the air. His eyes narrowed and a cold glint gradually appeared in his eyes. Chapter 751. The majestic mountain peak towered into the clouds. Under the sunlight, the shadow of the mountain covered a large area of the forest below. At this moment, a figure was moving rapidly in the forest. In a short while he arrived at the foot of the mountain. Unlike the dense forest in the distance, there was quite a large empty space at the foot of the mountain. At a glance, one could see the remains of quite a number of large magical beast corpses. The air was filled with a dense bloody scent that caused one to feel nauseous. Normally speaking, the cave of an ordinary magical beast would be arranged in a more secretive manner in order to increase its safety. However, this place was different. An enormous cave was purposely exposed. The skeletons of those magical beasts served as a foil to the majesty and overbearing aura of the owner of this place. It was likely that one would not be able to find a second place in the entire mountain range that could compare with this cave. At this moment, the target of that human figure was precisely this place. According to Lin Zheong's information, that 9-star half-martial emperor-level demonic beast was an extreme shadow leopard. It was the only 9-star half-martial emperor in this mountain range. It could be said that everything in this mountain range was under its control. In the blink of an eye, Lin Zheong had already appeared in front of Ah Bao's cave. At the same time, Ah Bao, who was within the cave, appeared to have sensed something and instantly opened his eyes. However, this time around was different from the last time. The instant Ah Bao opened his eyes, a deep horror involuntarily surged out from within his brown-red eyes. Before this, Xiaoyan had never told him that the person who had come to find him would be as strong as a Dodi. Just who is this fellow? Why is it that even an elite Dodi has come in order to find him? This thought flashed across Ah Bao's heart in both shock and fear. However, he did not dare to be careless. The other party was after all an elite Dodi. He was merely a bandit. Since the other party had already arrived in front of his cave, how would he dare to not come out to welcome him? I did not know that Sir had arrived. Please forgive me. Ah Bao hurriedly exited the cave. He hurriedly bowed to Lin Zheong, who was currently standing in front of the cave. At the same time, his mouth spoke respectfully. Don't try this with the old me. Speak. Did an injured human enter your cave? Lin Zheong was already used to Ah Bao's actions. He was too lazy to be bothered. He coldly snorted and went straight to the point. Once these words were spoken, Abao's heart was greatly shaken. He thought in his heart that the person in front of him was indeed here for Xiaoyan. However, his heart was filled with bitterness and helplessness. At this moment, regardless of whether it was Xiaoyan who was in the cave or Lin Zhang who was in front of him, both of them were existences that he could not afford to offend. If he were to accidentally let slip something, it was possible that he could take his life at any time. This caused Abao to complain incessantly in his heart. Sir, I don't understand what you mean." After a long while, Abao, who was prostrating on the ground, rolled his eyes, hoping that he could get away with it. Since you don't want to say it, I won't force you. But I have to warn you first, if you don't say it now, I won't do anything to you, but I can't guarantee that others won't do anything to you." Lin Zhang coldly laughed. His gaze randomly glanced at the cave behind Abao. Originally, he wanted to enter and search it. However, he gave up on this thought after a moment. Xiaoyan had already disappeared from this mountain range for a month. After such a long time, it was likely that the injuries on his body had already healed. How could he continue to stay in this place? Hence, Lin Zhang thought that he might as well bring Abao back and report to the Bai clan as soon as possible. This would save him the trouble of worrying about being discovered by the Bai clan. Abao's heart was immediately startled when he heard Lin Zhong's words. However, before he could think any further, Lin Zhang immediately attacked. He waved his large hand, and a majestic douqi spluttered out from his palm. With just one move, he easily subdued Abao, who was a 9-star bandit. It must be said that a douqi was like an invincible existence in the face of a bandit. The strongest technique in the eyes of a bandit was like a fart in the eyes of a bandit. Abao's expression immediately changed drastically after being subdued by Lin Zhang with one hand. He used all of his strength in hopes of escaping the restraint. However, the douqi that seemed to cover his body like a thin film was actually as hard as metal. No matter how hard he struggled, he was unable to escape. On the contrary, each time his attempt to escape became increasingly intense. The thin film that covered his body would shrink a little, forcefully squeezing his entire body. An even more intense pain was immediately transmitted over, causing Abao to involuntarily emit waves of miserable screams. You really overestimate yourself. Obediently follow the old me back, and you might be able to suffer less. Otherwise, the more you struggle, the more intense the pain you will suffer. Lin Zhang parted his mouth and laughed coldly. The row of teeth he revealed appeared extremely dense. However, just as he was about to bring Abao back to the clan, he was helpless against Abao. All he could do was place his final hope on Xiaoyan. He hoped that this fellow would not forget the relationship that he had worked hard to protect and would save him. Sir, save me." A miserable screech was mightily emitted from Abao's mouth. This voice was mixed with douqi, causing the entire mountain in front of him to tremble slightly. Soon after, the thin film of douqi that covered Abao's body immediately became even narrower. Looking from the outside, his entire face had become distorted. However, at this moment, Lin Zhong's brows were knit together the moment Abao let out a loud cry. An uneasy feeling involuntarily surged into his heart. The sudden loud cry of "Sir" by Abao caused him to involuntarily think of Xiaoyan. Don't tell me that that fellow has not left? This sudden thought in his heart caused Lin Zhang to feel both shock and fear in his heart. He was shocked that Xiaoyan had yet to leave. This meant that he had found him. As long as he found the people from the Bai clan and the Hua clan to capture Xiaoyan, he would be the greatest contributor to this matter. On the other hand, his Lin clan would definitely receive a great reward. On the other hand, he was afraid that Xiaoyan's injuries might have already recovered after a month. This fellow had a terrifying battle record of killing a 3-star douqi in the outside world. Regardless of the truth, just this point alone meant that Xiaoyan was not someone that he could deal with. Once they fought, it was likely that he would immediately fall into a disadvantage. Lin Zhong's heart hardened when he thought of this. From Abao's action just now, it was likely that Xiaoyan would intervene on his behalf. Once Xiaoyan's heart was on Abao's side, Lin Zhong would immediately have an additional layer of protection. If he could borrow Abao to cause Xiaoyan to hold back, all he needed to do was to send a message to the people from the 2 large clans. At that time, it would really be difficult for Xiaoyan to escape even if he had wings. Lin Zheong hurriedly controlled Ah Bao's body with the intention of grabbing the latter's throat. It was also at this moment that an extremely frightening spiritual strength suddenly descended. Not only did it shatter the Doqi film that wrapped around Ah Bao's body, but it also directly pulled Ah Bao in the direction of the cave. Cuckoo, Clan Head Lin, we have not met for a month. Why are you still doing such a thing? You want to use such a despicable method to threaten me. Clan Headlin really has a good plan. Unfortunately, you are a little late. Remember, in your next life, don't think so much if you want to kill someone. Chapter 752. Between Heaven and Earth, Xiao Yan's mocking voice leisurely drifted. On the ground below, Lin Zheong, who was standing in front of Xiao Yan's cave, had a green and white expression on his face. The muscles at the corner of his eyes involuntarily twitched intensely. His gaze swept all around him, hoping to find traces of Xiao Yan. Aha, are you looking for me again? Aren't I right in front of you? Suddenly, an extremely clear sound of lips biting was transmitted from beside Lin Zhehong's ear. It was as if someone was speaking into his ear. Lin Zhehong's face was suddenly filled with shock. At the same time, the expression on his face changed, and his body hurriedly retreated. Only when he had retreated to the edge of the open space did he raise his head to take a look. He saw a young man wearing a black robe standing at the spot where he was standing a moment ago. This person was Xiao Yan, who had disappeared for a month. Xiao Yan. Lin Zhehong's expression was extremely grave as he muttered in a deep voice. At the same time, the Do Qi within the vortex within his body was also swiftly raised at this moment. He was prepared to face Xiao Yan at any moment. Although Xiao Yan's strength appeared to only be that of a 6-star half-martial emperor, anyone in the current western region who had some understanding of him clearly knew that behind this seemingly weak strength of his, there was a powerful destructive force that caused even Do Di to feel fear. When facing him, no Do Di would dare to be careless. Seeing this, Xiao Yan parted his mouth and smiled, revealing a playful arc coincidentally. After swallowing the jade bone fruit, his strength had already stepped into the late stage of a 6-star half-martial emperor. Even the might of his force elephant technique had increased slightly. He wondered what kind of might his force elephant technique would be able to erupt with if he were to fight now. This guy. Seeing the indescribable arc on the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth, Lin Zhehong's heart tightened. This kind of smile was extremely frightening in his eyes. Only God knew what this guy in front of him was thinking. Lin Zheong did not wish to lose his life in this place. Soon after, however, Xiao Yan suddenly frowned just as he was about to attack. Within his spiritual perception, there was another person who was swiftly flying in the direction of the two of them. It's him. Xiao Yan was slightly surprised. He didn't expect that even he would come. A short while later, a human figure appeared in front of Xiao Yan and Lin Zhehong's sight. At the same time, Ah Bao, who was hiding far behind the two of them, also noticed the newcomer. Immediately, a stunned expression appeared in his eyes. He was within the Bai clan's sphere of influence, and was naturally well aware of this person's identity. This person was the young master of the Bai clan, Bai Zhan. Damn it! How did he discover the commotion here? When he saw Bai Zhan, Lin Zhehong's already heavy heart instantly sank to the bottom. However, he immediately relaxed a little and thought of a solution. Clan leader Lin, why are you here? There's actually Xiao Yan. When Bai Zhan saw Lin Zheong, his eyes flickered slightly as he asked a question that he already knew the answer to. Then his gaze turned and landed on Xiao Yan. Deep within his eyes, a trace of astonishment could not help but flash. He didn't expect Xiao Yan to still be in this mountain range. Lord Crown Prince, you came at the right time. A few days ago, I heard that there was some movement in the depths of this mountain range. I'm afraid that Xiao Yan is still here. Hence, I specially came here today to observe. I did not report to clan leader by an advance. This is my fault. Lin Zheong did not hear anything from Bai Zhan's words. He pretended to cup his fists at Bai Zhan as he muttered to himself. From his words, it seemed as if he was admitting his mistake, but also as if he was asking for credit. No matter. Everything will be fine as long as we find Xiao Yan. A sharp glow shot out from Bai Zhan's eyes. Lin Zheong only thought that Bai Zhan was targeting Xiao Yan. He immediately coldly laughed in his heart. You are indeed just trash. You actually still have the thought of capturing Xiaoyan at such a time. Once you die in Xiaoyan's hands, humph, the Bai clan. Lin Zhang coldly laughed in his heart. He immediately recovered and turned his gaze to Xiaoyan. It seemed that he was afraid that the latter would reveal the truth. Fortunately, Xiaoyan did not open his mouth. His gaze had landed on Baijian since the beginning. Lin Zhang did not know, but Baijian knew that Baijian's strength appeared to be that of a 9-star half-emperor. However, his strength had already reached the middle stage of a 2-star Dou-Di. Lin Zhang alone was not a match for him. Even Xiaoyan himself would have difficulty being a match for Baijian without relying on the Northern King. Since you and I have met Xiaoyan today, why don't we take advantage of this opportunity to attack together and capture him? At that time, you can bring him back to the clan and hand him over to the sect. This will be a great merit. Lin Zhang revealed an earnest smile to Baijian. The gaze he used to look at the latter was as if he was looking at a fool. Oh, Baijian's eyes brightened. It was as if he had really been tricked. However, he quickly frowned and asked in a doubtful voice, "Clan head Lin, you won't be doing this for nothing, right?" Humph, pretending to be smart. Lin Zhang coldly laughed in his heart and hurriedly said, "Haha, what are you saying, heir? We belong to the same group and are all members of the sect. There is no need to treat us as outsiders. Right now, it is more important to deal with Xiaoyan first." Although Lin Zhang said this, he did not think this way in his heart. He was not a match for Xiaoyan alone. Of course, he did not expect Baijian, a 9-star half-emperor, to be of any help. He only hoped that Baijian would be able to hold back Xiaoyan, so that he could find an opportunity to leave this place. At that time, even if Baijian died, this matter would only be blamed on Xiaoyan. Lin Zhang only needed to go back and fabricate this matter to Huting to get away. Naturally, he would be fine. This way, not only would his clan be safe, but he would also be able to get rid of the heir of the Bai clan. When the Bai clan was destroyed in the future, it would be the time for his Lin clan to rise to power. When he thought about the arrival of that day, Lin Zhang felt a little excited. Let's take action now and take down Xiaoyan." With a cold cry from his mouth, Lin Zhong's body shook. The Dou-Qi in his body immediately gathered on his arms. His pair of eyes stared intently at Xiaoyan on the opposite side. The corner of his mouth slowly lifted into an extremely cold smile. At the same time, Baijian, who was beside him, also grinned. He lifted his gaze and stared at Xiaoyan. The smile on his face gradually widened. Seeing this, the latter could not help but frown slightly. The Dou-Qi and the cyclone in his body quietly turned to the left. At the same time, the Northern King in the storage ring was also secretly preparing. However, in the next moment, the sound of bones breaking could be heard. Lin Zhang, who was beside Baijian, had already been beheaded. Chapter 753. This sudden turn of events caused Xiaoyan, who was on the opposite side, to be involuntarily stunned. He did not expect that the two people in front of him, who were about to attack him, would suddenly turn into such a state. Of course, the person who was the most sullen at this moment was likely Lin Zhang. Even until his death, he did not understand why Baijian, who was beside him, would attack him. The trash in his eyes, who he thought was a fool, had killed him at the most critical moment while he was unprepared. Who would continue to think that he was a fool after using such tactics? After all, anyone with a discerning eye would be able to hear that Lin Zhang did not have any good intentions when he said those words. Baijian appeared to have fallen into his trap. However, only at the last moment did Lin Zhang truly understand that Baijian was not a fool. Instead, he was too naive. From the beginning until the end, Baijian had treated the other party like a fool. The other party had also treated him in the same manner. It was just that Baijian was unable to see through it. Bang! Following a muffled sound, Lin Zhong's corpse fell to the ground like a pile of mud. Fresh blood continued to splatter. After twitching a couple of times, it stopped moving. Baijian narrowed his eyes when he saw this. A sharp glint shot out from his eyes. The corner of his mouth was lifted into a cold smile. At the same time, he raised his hand and aimed his palm at Lin Zhong's corpse. Soon after, a wild suction force surged out from Baijian's palm. Lin Zhong's body was immediately lifted into the air by this suction force. Baijian's hand suddenly withdrew. Following a miserable cry, Lin Zihong's corpse once again smashed heavily onto the ground. At the same time, an illusionary body appeared in Baijian's hand. From the looks of it, it was Lin Ziyang. In the Yuanwu continent, as long as one's strength reached the Do D class, one's spiritual essence would not scatter even if one did not have a physical body. Hence, the current Lin Zihong's spiritual essence within his body was completely undamaged. You are not a bandit. Only at this moment did Lin Ziyang, whose body had already turned illusionary, truly realize that the strength of the Baijian in front of him was not that of a 9-star bandit. The other party's strength was even stronger than Lin Ziyang at his peak. You are correct. However, it is too late. Baijian coldly laughed as he mocked. Why are you helping him? Don't you also want me to die? As long as I die, and with your interference, my father will definitely blame all of this on Xiaoyan. When my Bai clan and Xiaoyan fight to the death, your Lin clan will be able to replace my Bai clan's position. Baijian sneered. He had already roughly grasped the latter's thoughts. However, it was a pity that such thoughts were just wishful thinking in his opinion. Hearing Baijian's words, Lin Ziyang couldn't help but reveal a deep fear in his eyes. He didn't expect the young Baijian to have such a meticulous mind. What the Bai clan could think of, he had thought of it without a single mistake. Boom. Immediately after, without waiting for Lin Ziyang to struggle, Baijian's hand, which was pinching Lin Zihong's neck, suddenly exerted force and crushed Lin Zihong's neck. This time, Lin Zihong's life could be considered to have come to an end. After doing all this, Baijian finally raised his head and looked at Xiaoyan on the opposite side. He smiled and said, Mr. Xiaoyan is truly a capable person. A month ago, you were still a middle-stage 6-star half-martial emperor. In the blink of an eye, you've already reached late-stage 6-star half-martial emperor. This sort of frightening cultivation speed is truly stupefying. Haha, I merely borrowed the miraculous effect of the jade bone fruit. It can't be considered much. Xiaoyan lightly smiled. He was not exaggerating. Hearing that, a radiance flashed through Baijian's eyes. He thought to himself, sure enough, Lin Ziyang is dead. I believe that the Lin clan will soon discover that Lin Ziyang is dead. At that time, they will inevitably send people over. Mr. Xiaoyan, do you still plan to continue to stay here? Baijian looked to Xiaoyan with a smile that was not a smile. Hearing those words, the latter frowned slightly. Soon after, the corners of his mouth curled up. He smiled and said, Brother Bai's scheming is much better than this fellow's. Once I leave, the crime of killing Lin Ziyang will be placed on my head. That way, the Hua clan will turn their attention to you, and your Bai clan will have less pressure. Baijian frowned slightly. He did have such a plan. On one hand, he wanted to find an excuse for himself. On the other hand, he hoped that he would be able to use this opportunity to gather the Hua clan's attention on Xiaoyan. To his Bai clan, this would be extremely beneficial. However, looking at Xiaoyan's current appearance, it seemed that, forget it. Seeing that you helped me get rid of him, I can help you take the blame. However, I want something from you. Xiaoyan narrowed his eyes and said with a smile. Seeing the smile that was lifted from the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth, Baijian's heart involuntarily tightened. Why did this smile give him a strange feeling? However, in the end, Baijian violently clenched his teeth and asked in a solemn voice. May I know what Mr. Xiaoyan wants? That 5-star Do D-class monster core. Baijian's words had just sounded when Xiaoyan immediately spoke. At the same time, the latter's expression instantly changed. The muscles on the corner of his mouth twitched wildly. This action of Xiaoyan really had the feeling of snatching food from a tiger's mouth. That monster core was something that both father and son valued greatly. Although they knew in their hearts that the result of refining it would be greatly reduced, they were unwilling to give it up. At this moment, Xiaoyan had actually unceremoniously opened his mouth to ask for this thing. Even with Baijian's character, he could not help but have the impulse to curse at this moment. Baijian was quiet for a long while before he finally calmed himself down. A thought flew in his heart, but he was unable to think of a complete reason to reply to Xiaoyan. The monster core is in my father's hands. Perhaps I can accompany you here and wait for the arrival of the Lin clan. I think that the Hua clan will also send someone here not long later. Before Baijian could finish speaking, Xiaoyan interrupted him. Xiaoyan smiled as he looked at Baijian. His indifferent manner caused Baijian's heart to itch with anger. He wished that he could charge forward and bite Xiaoyan a couple of times. However, in the end, Baijian could only helplessly compromise. After all, that monster core might be a treasure, but compared to it, the future of the clan was more important. Hence, after Baijian quietly weighed the pros and cons in his heart, he finally threw a jade box that contained the monster core to Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan did not inspect it. Instead, he threw it into his storage ring. The other party currently had a weakness that he could use against him. Naturally, Baijian would not dare to give him a fake one. Otherwise, Baijian should have expected that kind of result. Thanks. We will meet again. Xiaoyan grinned and revealed a smile that was as bright as the sun. However, this smile caused Baijian to bitterly laugh when he saw it. Xiaoyan turned around and called out to Abao, who was carefully observing from afar. When Abao heard Xiaoyan's words, he immediately ran over and obediently followed behind Xiaoyan. The two of them swiftly flew towards the southern horizon. Baijian looked at the direction where the two of them had gradually disappeared from where he stood. His face finally revealed a helpless expression. He looked at Lin Zhang, who had already died beside him, and cursed softly. Immediately he waved his sleeves and a cluster of turbulent flames immediately flew out, turning Lin Zhang's corpse and head into ashes in an instant. Chapter 754. After leaving the territory of the Bai clan, Xiaoyan conveniently brought Abao with him. Although this 9-star half-martial emperor was currently very weak, as long as he was given sufficient time or the opportunity, it would be extremely easy for him to step into the Do D class. Next, Xiaoyan's target was to head to the south of the Shilin region, the Shilin mountain range. Currently, the medicinal ingredients needed to refine the medicinal pill had been gathered. It was time for Xiaoyan to refine the Bodhisattva returning pill. Once he successfully refined the Bodhisattva returning pill and obtained the icy spirit cold liquid, there would be hope for the ice spirit pill. Once the ice spirit pill was refined, it would be time for Xiaoyan to swallow the heavenly flame. Now, the day of swallowing the heavenly flame was approaching. However, Xiaoyan also felt a sense of loss in his heart at the same time. Unlike an ordinary person who borrowed the strength of a heavenly flame, once he swallowed Guyu's actual body, Guyu's consciousness would disappear. At that time, Guyu, who had accompanied Xiaoyan, would completely disappear from this world. This thought caused Xiaoyan's heart to feel an endless loneliness. Of course, Xiaoyan also understood in his heart that this was Guyu's mission. Guyu's existence was to wait for Xiaoyan's arrival. According to Guyu's words, he was already tired of living like this. Haha, little fellow, there is no need to mind. It is inevitable that you will swallow the bone-chilling flame. The old me has been trapped in this world for too long. If you can successfully swallow the bone-chilling flame, it will be a kind of release for me. Guyu sensed the change in Xiaoyan's mental state along the way. He immediately made a guess in his heart. Xiaoyan quietly nodded in his heart after hearing Guyu's words. The disappointed expression on his face was also withdrawn. He led Abao behind him and swiftly flew in the direction of the Shilin mountain range. In the blink of an eye, 1 month had passed. Currently, there was still more than a year left before the 2-year agreement between Xiaoyan and Lungbing. However, Xiaoyan had already found the medicinal ingredients to refine the Bodhisattva pill and returned here once again. Xiaoyan stood high in the sky. His gaze looked at the vast mountain range in front of him, which he could not see the end of. His heart finally sighed in relief. Arriving at this place gave him the feeling that he had found his family. Compared to the complicated emotions of a human, everything in this place appeared much more straightforward. The so-called good and evil were easily displayed in this place. At the very least, Xiaoyan did not need to scheme against the magical beasts in this mountain range. At this moment, even Abao, who was standing behind Xiaoyan, also swept his gaze over the mountain range in front of him. A shock immediately surged into his eyes. Compared to the mountain range he was in, this place was simply boundless. Comparing the two, it actually felt like a small child in the presence of a great one. Perhaps, this Shilin mountain range would be tens or hundreds of times the size of his mountain range. Is this the Shilin mountain range? It is really huge. Abao's face was stunned as he opened his mouth. Originally, He wanted to say something impressive. However, in the end he realized that he did not know how to describe the mountain range in front of him. All right, let's go. We have yet to reach our destination. Xiaoyan smiled. His body moved and took the lead to fly into the depths of the mountain range. Bao followed closely behind. Sir, Bao has a question that I have always wanted to ask you. May I know? Just ask. Bao involuntarily frowned during the journey and asked Xiaoyan. Xiaoyan faintly replied. He listened to Bao's words as he swiftly rushed forward. That is, sir, may I ask if you are really a human? Bao's Adam's apple moved slightly as he spoke, indicating the nervousness in his heart. Ever since Xiaoyan had recovered from his injuries, Bao had always faintly sensed a faint pressure from Xiaoyan's body. This kind of pressure came from the bloodline pressure between magical beasts. Only magical beasts could sense each other. When he had first met Xiaoyan back then, Bao had not sensed it due to Xiaoyan's weak aura. However, after Xiaoyan had recovered from his injuries, that strange pressure had been emitted from Xiaoyan's body. The closer he was, the clearer he could sense it. It was because of this that he had such a question. No. Hearing Bao's words, Xiaoyan secretly smiled. He naturally knew the reason, but there was no need to reveal it to Bao. Bao felt somewhat helpless in the face of Xiaoyan's vague answer. He scratched his head and followed closely behind Xiaoyan. However, he carefully maintained a distance. Not long after, Xiaoyan brought Bao to the depths of the Shilin mountain range. The Sky Eagle trio were nowhere to be seen, but Xiaoyan knew where they were. Xiaoyan smiled. A thought passed through his mind, and the soul bead between his brows trembled slightly. Soon after, a majestic spiritual strength swiftly spread towards the mountain range below. After a few breaths of time, 3 figures sitting cross-legged in the depths of the earth suddenly opened their eyes. They raised their heads, and a fierce look appeared in their eyes. Who dares to spy here? Haha, there is no need to be nervous. It is me. Just as the expressions of the 3 changed, a somewhat illusory human figure slowly condensed in the empty space in front of them. These 3 were the 3 beast kings of the Shilin mountain range, Sky Eagle, Flame Lion and Xionggang. Xiaoyan. It's Xiaoyan. Brother Xiaoyan, you're back. The 3 of them cried out in surprise at the same time. The stern expression on their faces instantly turned into ecstasy. It seemed that there was nothing happier than seeing the person in front of them. Haha, 3 brothers, it's best if you come out and meet me. All right. The 3 of them exchanged glances with each other when they heard Xiaoyan's words. They immediately nodded their heads in agreement. First, they sealed the underground space where the 3 of them were located. After which, their bodies moved and they left this place. A few minutes later, in the sky outside, 5 figures stood impressively. When the Sky Eagle trio saw Xiaoyan again, it was as if they were brothers reuniting. The 3 of them stepped forward and gave Xiaoyan a big bear hug. Only then did the 3 of them notice Bao, who was behind Xiaoyan. This is, Sky Eagle frowned. The bloodline connection let him know at first glance that this guy was the same as them. They were all magical beasts. Moreover, he was also a 9-star half-emperor. Xiaoyan casually recounted what had happened in the Bai family's territory. Although it was an understatement, it still caused the expressions of the 3 in front of him to change. However, seeing that Xiaoyan had returned unharmed, they were able to relax. Right, brother Xiaoyan, you came back this time for... After coming back to his senses, Baiying first looked at Bao, who was behind Xiaoyan, then turned his gaze to Xiaoyan and asked in a puzzled voice. Haha, of course I'm back to fulfill the agreement. Chapter 755. Shilin Mountain Range, within Tianying's cave. Xiaoyan and Tianying were seated within the large hall. As for Yan Shi and Xionggang, they thought that Bao was looking for a cave and had sent him away. Brother Xiaoyan, what you said earlier means, you have already finished refining the Bodhisattva returning pill? Tianying's face carried a trace of surprise. Ever since Xiaoyan had revealed his spiritual strength earlier, he had already sensed that the current Xiaoyan was no longer the same as before. He was no longer a rank 2 alchemist. In less than a year, the person in front of him had actually become a rank 3 alchemist that even an elite Do-D would treat with respect. The Bodhisattva returning pill was a rank 3 medicinal pill. Tianying's heart immediately thought of the Bodhisattva returning pill when he heard that Xiaoyan had returned to deliver the promise. No, I have only just found the medicinal ingredients needed to refine the medicinal pill. I have yet to begin refining it. Xiaoyan smiled bitterly and shook his head when he heard Tianying's words. Although he had already become a rank 3 alchemist in the eyes of others, who would know that this rank 3 alchemist in name had yet to personally refine a true rank 3 medicinal pill. Tianying nodded his head when he saw this and said, "It's fine. Since the medicinal ingredients have already been found, refining the medicinal pill is merely a matter of time. You have also had a tough journey. You should rest at my place for a couple of days. I can see that your aura is a little weak. You have only broken through to the advanced 6-star half-martial emperor level not long ago, right?" Tianying first nodded his head. Soon after, he discovered another abnormality on Xiaoyan's body. He was surprised in his heart. He did not expect that Xiaoyan had actually broken through to the advanced 6-star half-martial emperor level so quickly. This kind of training speed was something that the three brothers could only hope to catch up with. Haha, it is merely borrowing external strength. It is nothing much. Xiaoyan smiled awkwardly when he heard this. He did not deny it. You're really a monster. Tianying's brows twitched. He involuntarily shook his head and smiled bitterly. Immediately, he randomly gave Xiaoyan some instructions before turning around and leaving this place. He left the remaining strength and space to Xiaoyan. All of a sudden, Xiaoyan was the only one left in the huge cave abode. Xiaoyan pondered for a moment. There was still a year before the agreement with Lung Bingshuang. During this period of time, it was completely enough for him to refine the Bodhi returning pill. His body lazily leaned against the back of the chair. Soon after, Xiaoyan's spirit was roused. He seemed to have thought of something and hurriedly stood up from the chair. Both of his hands were swiftly lifted from under his sleeves, revealing 2 fair palms. With a flick of his hand, a circle of pitch-black ancient scrolls appeared in Xiaoyan's left hand, while a palm-sized jade bottle appeared in his right hand. The pitch-black scroll was naturally the incomplete sage-grade cultivation method that had been auctioned off at the auction. As for the jade bottle, it naturally contained Xiao Xian's remnant soul. After Xiaoyan took out these 2 items, the empty space beside him became slightly distorted. Soon after, Guyu's body appeared. His eyes were firmly fixed on the black scroll in Xiaoyan's left hand from the very beginning. Xiaoyan raised his eyebrows slightly when he saw Guyu appear by the side. He had originally intended to ask Guyu for advice. Unexpectedly, Guyu had appeared on his own. "Old Gu, do you know what's different about this cultivation method?" Xiaoyan softly inquired as he opened the scroll in his left hand. Immediately, a fragment of an ancient qi method was exposed in the air. At this moment, the jade bottle in Xiaoyan's right hand trembled slightly. There seemed to be a mysterious connection between the two that could not be seen with the naked eye. "I can't be wrong. This must be the origin skill." Guyu's eyes stared intently at the small fragment of the qi method in front of him. Both of his eyes involuntarily revealed a deep surprise. "This is unexpected. I really did not expect that this thing, which had disappeared from the continent for so many years, would actually appear here. Moreover, it has appeared together with him. This is really fate." Guyu smacked his lips. A gloating smile appeared on his old face. Just how many people had once gone crazy over the origin skill? Because of this thing, a countless number of people had died. However, from the looks of it now, no one recognized it even though it was placed in front of them. This allowed Xiaoyan to take advantage of it. Origin skill, huh? A sage-grade qi method. I wonder just how powerful it is. Xiaoyan revealed a curious expression when he heard Guyu's words. He looked at the qi method fragment in his left hand. A qi method that could cause Guyu to exclaim was definitely extraordinary. Haha, this origin skill is not only powerful. It is not an exaggeration to call it heaven-defying. Guyu smiled. He did not hide the praise in his words. Xiaoyan lifted his eyebrows. He could not help but feel surprised in his heart. Just how heaven-defying was this origin skill? To think that Guyu would repeatedly praise it. Origin skill. Based on what I know, anyone who practices this qi method will definitely be able to reach the origin venerate level. Guyu mused for a moment. after which he spoke to Xiaoyan in a solemn tone. Origin venerate. A shocked expression immediately appeared on Xiaoyan's face when Gu Yu's words sounded. Origin venerate was a true top expert in the Yuanwu continent. An expert who stood at the top of the pyramid. Just what kind of qi method was this? It actually guaranteed that the practitioner would definitely be able to reach the origin venerate level. It was likely that even some cultivation geniuses, who boasted of their frightening talent, would not dare to make such a claim. But why would it cause ancestor Xiaoxian to react in such an unusual manner? Soon after, Xiaoyan recovered. The reason why he had taken out these two things was merely to find out why Xiaoxian's soul fragment had reacted in such an unusual manner. He was not concerned about just how frightening this qi method was. This is because your ancestor practices the origin skill. The qi method that he practices is of the same origin as this remnant scroll. This is why a mysterious connection is formed between them. What? Xiaoyan's expression changed drastically after Gu Yu's words sounded. From Gu Yu's words, it seemed that the qi method that Xiaoxian practiced was this origin skill. Don't be so anxious. If he had really practiced the complete version of the origin skill, how could his strength be stuck at the 9th star of the Dosheng class? The reason why he was unable to break through to the Ban D class was because his qi method was incomplete. Incomplete? The excited expression on Xiaoyan's face was slowly withdrawn. The excitement in his heart also gradually returned to calmness. However, the doubt in his heart grew. Could it be that the origin skill that ancestor Xiaoxian practiced was merely an incomplete scroll? There is no need to think too much about it. The origin skill that your ancestor practiced is indeed complete. However, the one that he practiced only allowed his strength to reach the 9-star Dosheng class. Chapter 756. One's strength can only reach the 9th star of the Dosheng class. Why is that so? Xiaoyan's expression involuntarily changed after hearing Gu Yu's words. He was surprised in his heart. Had Gu Yu not said that this origin skill would allow one's strength to reach the great origin venerate level? Why had it become a 9th star Dosheng in the blink of an eye? Brat, why are you so anxious? I have yet to finish speaking. Gu Yu softly teased. After which his old face became serious as he continued. I have just said that the origin skill can allow one's strength to reach the great origin venerate level. This is indeed the truth. However, I have also said that the origin skill that your ancestor practiced would at the very most allow his strength to reach the 9th star of the Dosheng class. Huh? Xiaoyan was startled. Could it be that the origin skill was divided into different levels? This thought had just appeared in Xiaoyan's heart when Gu Yu by the side quickly opened his mouth. Based on what I know, the origin skill is divided into 3 volumes. That is really the case. Xiaoyan was startled. The muscles on the corner of his mouth twitched involuntarily. It was unexpected that there was such a ridiculous qi method. The first volume of the origin skill can raise one's strength to the Dosheng class. There will be no bottleneck before one reaches the 9th star of the Dosheng class. What? Xiaoyan's heart was greatly startled after these words were uttered. A qi method that could eliminate bottlenecks. Just this point alone made this origin skill worthy of being called frightening. As everyone knew, the so-called path of cultivation was bitter and arduous. Cultivation was not easy. Who knew how many people with great ambitions had their strength stagnated because of some bottlenecks on the path of cultivation? Originally, they had great cultivation aptitude, but because they were unable to break through their own cultivation bottlenecks, their cultivation ended. In the end, the cultivation geniuses could only fade into the crowd. There would never be a lack of people on this continent who had turned from a genius to a good-for-nothing. For example, Xiaoyan back then, or Baijian, who had once competed with him. Of course, the latter was naturally pretending. But even so, he still couldn't escape the eyes of ordinary people. The bottleneck of cultivation could be said to be a fence that blocked the path of countless experts. If one could break through it, their future would be smooth. If not, they would be imprisoned on the other side of the fence forever, and could only be reduced to the background of others for the rest of their lives. But now, the returnance technique could actually allow cultivators to avoid all kinds of bottlenecks on the path of cultivation. Didn't this mean that as long as one cultivated the returnance technique, no matter how poor one's cultivation talent was, They could use it to become a powerhouse overnight. Who didn't wish to transform into a dragon? Who didn't wish to become a peerless expert whose name would shake the world and be revered by the world? It was also because of this that so many experts on the mainland had gone crazy over the returnance technique. Don't be happy too early. This is indeed the reason why people have gone crazy over the returnance technique. However, how can it be so easy to become a powerhouse? Even the returnance technique cannot allow one to reach a bottleneck. Guyu poured a bucket of cold water over Xiao Yan's head while he was feeling shocked by the returnance technique. He immediately pulled Xiao Yan out of his imagination. I have already said that the returnance technique is divided into 3 volumes. Each volume has its own advantages. However, if one wishes to use the returnance technique to raise one's cultivation to the origin venerate, one needs to use the 3 volumes to complement each other. The first volume can help a cultivator reach the 9th star of the Dosheng realm, just like your ancestor. However, the 9th star of the Dosheng realm is the limit of the first volume. One needs to cultivate the second volume if they want to break through this barrier. Similarly, the second volume can only raise a cultivator's strength to the returnance realm. If they want to break through, they need to cultivate the third volume. The connection between each volume is the 2 realms of Half-Emperor, Origin King, and the Origin Saint realm after the Origin Venerate. After cultivating the returnance technique, the amount of time and difficulty required to break through these 3 realms will be several times that of an ordinary person. However, even if this is the case, it cannot hide the fact that the returnance technique is powerful. This old man once heard that 1,000 years ago, someone had coincidentally obtained the complete set of this secret art. In a short 100 years, that person had actually leapt to become a peerless expert whose name shook the entire continent. That person's strength was something that few people could compare to even in that era. From this, one can imagine just how frightening this returnance art is. Even with Guyu's mental fortitude, he could not help but reveal a shocked expression when he reached the end of his speech. It was easy to imagine that someone had become a peerless expert who could shock the continent in just 100 years. How could this not cause one's expression to change? 100 years might seem like a very long time, but it was merely the blink of an eye in the eyes of a cultivator. Just think of the sect leaders of the 4 great sects of the Western region. Every single one of them had cultivated for hundreds of years to reach their current accomplishments. On the other hand, it seemed like they had been sleeping their entire lives when compared to that person. Hiss, Xiao Yan's throat rolled slightly. Since Guyu had already revealed such an appearance, he was naturally not in a much better state. It was a long while later before Xiao Yan gradually withdrew his mind. His eyes once again returned to the scroll in his hand. Immediately, Xiao Yan felt that this remnant scroll had become much heavier. If it was really as Gugu had said, this remnant scroll in his hand was related to the problem of Xiao Xian's strength after he was revived. Xiao Yan did not dare to be the slightest bit careless when facing Xiao Xian no matter what. Old Gu, can you tell which part of the returnance technique this remnant scroll belongs to? Xiao Yan lifted his eyes, turned to Guyu by the side, and asked curiously. Although there were quite a number of words on this scroll fragment, Xiao Yan was unable to understand any of these ancient and strange things. How would he be able to identify which scroll it was? I don't understand either. I can only see if you have the opportunity to find the other remnant scrolls. I can't tell anything from this small piece. If it were not for the abnormality of this jade bottle in the auction house, I would not have thought that this was the returnance technique. Guyu helplessly shrugged his shoulders when he heard Xiao Yan's words. Seeing this, Xiao Yan could not help but feel vexed. Helpless, he could only temporarily keep it safe. As for the remaining remnant scroll that Guyu had mentioned, Xiao Yan would naturally try his luck. After all, it was related to his ancestor, Xiao Xian. After recovering, Xiao Yan's gaze once again looked at the jade bottle in his right hand. A smile surfaced on his face. Ancestor, please wait a little longer. As long as I gather enough spiritual origin, I will help you repair your soul as soon as possible. After which, Xiao Yan flipped his hand. At the same time, he stood up and walked out of the cave. However, the moment Xiao Yan kept the jade bottle in his storage ring, an extremely weak light lit up within the jade bottle. Even Xiao Yan did not notice it. /6_. Chapter 757. 3 days later, a black-robed figure stood at the peak of the Shilin mountain range. Xiaoyan stood with his hands behind his back as he faced the blowing cold wind. He allowed the cold wind to blow at his black robes as his pitch-black eyes looked towards the southern horizon. At the end of his sight was a vast white world. One could faintly see the silhouette of some tall mountains. Behind the tall mountains was the hinterland of Shilin. Xiaoyan could not help but frown slightly as he felt the incoming cold wind. Has the cold wind already invaded this place? Xiaoyan was naturally referring to the cold wind in the hinterland of Shilin. Even though the eastern wall had been sealed, the cold current had crossed over the tall mountains and spread towards the Shilin mountain range. Quite a large area of the forest had already been covered by ice and snow. That's right. The cold wind there is growing stronger and stronger. Moreover, that lord's injuries have yet to recover. After so many years, no one knows what will happen to this place if this drags on. Tian Ying's figure slowly appeared in the empty space to the side. His eyes were similarly looking towards the southern horizon. His eyes could not help but reveal a worried expression. They were born and grew up here. They were destined to stay and protect the Shilin mountain range. However, they ultimately did not wish to see this mountain range destroyed. Regardless of whether it was invaded by humans or drowned by the cold wind, the blow to the Shilin mountain range would be devastating. Is there no way to deal with this cold wind? Xiaoyan's brows were almost tightly knitted together. The cold current had spread from underground. Blindly sealing it was ultimately not a long-term solution. Once the cold current once again charged out of the ground, the Shilin mountain range would definitely become a living hell. It was simply impossible for an ordinary half-martial emperor to survive the cold current. Besides Lung Bingshuang, the strongest people in the Shilin mountain range were Tianing and the other two. Even the three of them were not confident in dealing with the cold current, let alone the others. Before Her Excellency was injured, she had been using her strength to forcefully suppress the cold currents, which prevented them from spreading throughout the entire mountain range. However, after Her Excellency was injured, her ability to suppress the cold currents became weaker and weaker. A few years ago, Her Excellency could no longer suppress the cold currents, and could only allow them to spread. Fortunately, there was the mountain wall to block them. However, after what happened last time, the mountain wall clearly could not block them for much longer. It was also because of this that Her Excellency was in such an urgent need for the Bodhi returning pill. Tianing shook his head with a heavy expression. His words allowed Xiaoyan to understand why Lung Bingshuang was so concerned about the Bodhi returning pill. As the master of the Shilin mountain range, she needed to protect everything here. Xiaoyan took a deep breath and nodded slightly. Then he turned his head and said to Sky Eagle, "Old brother Sky Eagle, I will have to trouble you to help me clear the nearby mountain range." Sky Eagle's expression was involuntarily stunned when he heard this. He asked in confusion, "Old brother Xiaoyan, I think that it is time to refine the Bodhi returning pill." Xiaoyan pursed his mouth and smiled. He did not say anything else as he sat cross-legged on the mountain top. He waved his large hand and a light flashed. Soon after, a green-gold enormous medicinal cauldron landed in front of Xiaoyan like a small mountain. It was only at this moment that Tianing by the side finally recovered. Joy immediately surged onto his face as he nodded heavily. His body flashed and disappeared from the sky above the mountain top. Not long later, all the magical beasts within the territory of Tianing and the other two brothers deep within the Shilin mountain range appeared to have received an order as they swiftly withdrew from the periphery of the Shilin mountain range. Within a short moment, only Xiaoyan, the three Tianing brothers, and Abao remained in this mountain range. On a mountain peak, the three Sky Eagles and Abao stood there. The four of them raised their eyes and stared at the mountain peak where Xiaoyan was. The expressions in each of their eyes were different. Xiaoyan sat cross-legged on the mountain peak. His eyes slowly closed and his breathing gradually became even. He tossed all the thoughts in his mind to the back of his mind as his heart gradually calmed down. A moment later, Xiaoyan's body stopped moving. He allowed the medicinal cauldron in front of him to land heavily on the mountain peak. The area within 1,000 feet of Xiaoyan's body seemed to have formed a special area. It was as though there was an invisible wall. Each time the cold wind invaded this area, it would automatically scatter to the sides. Xiao Yan's body did not move even a little. His entire person was like an old monk who had entered a meditative state. All the distracting thoughts in his heart were abandoned by Xiao Yan. His mind was completely blank. His entire person had entered an ethereal state. He could not hear any sound in the world, nor could he sense any movement. In this manner, Xiao Yan sat cross-legged for a total of 4 hours. It was not until 4 hours later at a certain moment that Xiao Yan, who was on the mountain peak, finally slowly exhaled. His dark, deep eyes slowly opened. They were calm, much like a deep pool of water that one could not see through and could not see through. The thoughts in Xiao Yan's mind rotated. The medicinal properties of the various medicinal ingredients, and the medicinal formula of the Bodhisattva returning pill, clearly appeared in Xiao Yan's mind as though he was flipping through a book. Every step and detail was repeatedly formed in Xiao Yan's mind. A completed Bodhisattva returning pill seemed to have appeared in Xiao Yan's mind. He sat there for another 2 hours. The setting sun was like a remnant of blood. In the distance, one could see a red sun that looked like a huge fireball. The scarlet clouds emitted a blazing light under the scarlet sun. It looked like a large flame burning in the sky. It looked like it was boiling, but also like it was about to be extinguished. PFFF. The mountain peak in the distance was like a giant beast that ate the sky. It swallowed a small part of the red sun. The setting sun was like blood, and it was even more gorgeous. At the same time, on the mountain peak, Xiao Yan had been sitting in front of the medicinal cauldron for a day. Billowing flames burned fiercely with a puff. The gorgeous flames emitted a radiance as bright as the sun. The terrifying high temperature was isolated by the medicinal cauldron, and the entire mountain range became bright in an instant. Even the red sun in the sky couldn't compare to this radiance. The moment the flames rose on the other side on the mountain peak in the distance, the 4 people sitting with their eyes closed suddenly opened their eyes. Their eyes brightened, and their hearts relaxed. This guy, he's finally going to start refining pills. The flame lion parted his mouth and smiled. Half of the large stone suspended in his heart had finally fallen. He had waited for an entire day for this scene. It was unexpected that Xiao Yan would only unleash his flame at this moment. /54_. M. Chapter 758. The moon rose above the treetops. Unknowingly, night had already descended. Xiao Yan sat in front of the huge green-gold cauldron at the top of the cliff. Hundreds of precious medicinal ingredients floated in the air around him, forming a ring that surrounded Xiao Yan. A fierce flame burned within the medicinal cauldron. Xiao Yan controlled a couple of medicinal ingredients at a steady pace, and threw them into the medicinal cauldron. Under the refinement of the heavenly flame, those originally green and bright medicinal ingredients gradually changed color. Of course, this kind of change was extremely minute. An ordinary person would have difficulty sensing it. Only an alchemist could clearly see it in his mind by relying on his enormous spiritual perception. The process of refining medicinal ingredients was long and boring. It tested the alchemist's patience. At the same time, it also tested the alchemist's understanding of medicinal ingredients. The degree of refinement of each medicinal ingredient determined the final result of the refinement. This was directly related to the final result of the refinement of the pill. The quality of the finished product not only needed to consider the fusion of the medicinal ingredients at the later stage, but also the refinement at the earlier stage. It played a crucial role. The purity of the medicinal herbs was related to the quality of the medicinal pill itself, and the degree of purification was related to the number of finished medicinal pills. The more medicinal herbs were refined, the more pills would be refined. Otherwise, there would be nothing left. In the blink of an eye, half a month had already passed. It was said that there was no time in cultivation. However, refining medicine was not much different. In the end, it required a large amount of time to complete. As the saying goes, where there are gains, there are losses. From a certain point of view, refining medicine was a combination of gains and losses. This was even more so for cultivation. The roaring flames burned without any change within the green-gold cauldron. Xiao Yan's eyes were tightly shut. Half a month did not cause Xiao Yan to feel the slightest bit of fatigue. On the contrary, he felt that his temperament had become even more stable under the repeated refinement. Tianning and the other two would occasionally watch from afar with Abao. Under the might of the three people, not a single magical beast dared to take half a step into this place. The high-ranked magical beasts that originally resided in the depths of the Shilin mountain range had also helplessly retreated to the outskirts of the Shilin mountain range. This matter caused the various magical beasts in the Shilin mountain range to change their expressions. The humans outside the mountain range were also extremely puzzled by this. Damn it! What exactly happened in the Shilin mountain range? Why have all these high-ranked magical beasts come here? 8-star half-emperor level magical beasts. Such powerful fellows should normally be cultivating in the depths of the mountain range. Why have they appeared here? In the outskirts of the Shilin mountain range. They even more? Of them even more. And in the Shilin mountain range. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. Time swiftly flowed by without Xiaoyan realizing it. The medicinal ingredients in the medicinal cauldron in front of Xiaoyan had basically been refined into various states. They were either powders, viscous liquids, or some different colored liquids and plasters. There were over 100 types in total. On the peak of the mountain, Xiaoyan's seated figure did not move at all. He was like a statue. In the cauldron in front of him, several hundred types of medicinal ingredients that had already been refined were slowly fusing together under the control of the heavenly fire. When medicinal properties clashed, there would be medicinal ingredients that would neutralize them. When medicinal properties were compatible, there would be medicinal ingredients with violent medicinal properties that would fuse together. The process of fusing medicinal ingredients was slow and long. This step alone took Xiaoyan an entire week's time. Within the hot medicinal cauldron that was filled with a heavenly flame, clusters of thumb-sized medicinal ingredient essences were wrapped by the heavenly flame as they rotated. Following the pouring in of Xiaoyan's spiritual strength, these medicinal ingredients began to approach at an extremely slow speed. An unyielding energy ripple erupted from within the medicinal cauldron the moment they made contact, scattering some of the surrounding flames. The two clusters of medicinal liquid were just like two wild and violent magical beasts. Neither of them was willing to show weakness. Allowing them to fuse together was as difficult as ascending to the heavens. With regards to this, even with Xiaoyan's spiritual strength, he could not help but feel a little troubled in his heart. It was indeed worthy of being a medicinal ingredient used to refine a Tier 3 medicinal pill. This kind of powerful energy fluctuation was not something that those Tier 2 medicinal pills could compare with. Fortunately, even though this process caused Xiaoyan to spend quite a lot of effort, the two clusters of medicinal liquid still slowly fused together under Xiaoyan's powerful spiritual strength. However, this was merely the beginning. After this, there were still quite a number of medicinal liquid that had yet to be fused. By the time Xiaoyan had completely fused these medicinal ingredients, another half a month had already passed. However, just as everything gradually appeared to be on the right track, the medicinal ingredients within the medicinal cauldron that were about to formally enter the pill merging process suddenly emitted a puff sound and turned into a pile of ashes in an extremely abrupt manner. The sudden appearance of this scene caused everything that Xiaoyan had done earlier to instantly turn into bubbles. His entire person was absent-minded for a moment. Fortunately, not long after, Xiaoyan recovered from it. Failing to refine a medicinal pill was simply a common occurrence for alchemists. It was just a failure. At the very most, they could just start all over again. The only thing that could be feared was that after failing once, they would not have the courage to face it again. This was truly pitiful. The first failure did not leave any complicated feelings in Xiaoyan's heart. Instead, it caused Xiaoyan to be even faster in his second refining process. Everything became smooth like flowing water. Even when it came to the crucial steps of refining a Tier 3 medicinal pill, Xiaoyan did not hesitate at all. Just like this, after more than 2 months, the second batch of medicinal ingredients in Xiaoyan's medicinal cauldron officially entered the pill fusing process. This process was to separate and fuse the various medicinal ingredients that had been previously refined. After this process, it would be the final step of fusing the pills. As long as this step was passed, it would be the process of condensing the pills and nurturing the pills. This step was the most crucial and important moment in the entire refining process. It could be said that the success or failure of this step was directly related to the medicinal pill itself. If it succeeded, there was hope for the medicinal pill and how valuable it would be. If it failed, it would turn into a pile of black ashes and become worthless. At this moment, some cold sweat finally flowed down Xiao Yan's forehead. /54_. Chapter 759. In the blink of an eye, 5 months had passed since Xiao Yan had begun refining the Bodhisattva return pill. During these 5 months, he had failed to refine the Bodhisattva return pill once. After taking out the second set of medicinal ingredients, Xiao Yan was only left with 1 set of medicinal ingredients out of the 3 sets that he needed to refine the Bodhisattva return pill. In other words, Xiao Yan only had 1 chance of failing when refining the Bodhisattva return pill. With the first failure, Xiao Yan was even more cautious this time around. The various small errors that had occurred during the previous refinement were all eliminated by Xiao Yan this time around. Although some small unforeseen events had occurred during this period of time, it was fortunate that they did not have any impact on the actual pill fusion process. On the top of the cliff, Xiao Yan's statue-like body trembled slightly. His eyes, which had been tightly shut for many months, finally opened once again. His mouth exhaled a long breath. The huge rock that had been suspended high in Xiao Yan's heart had finally been lifted a little. The long and difficult pill fusion process was finally completed after bitterly persevering for over a month. Fortunately, Xiao Yan did not encounter any accidents this time around. Perhaps it was because his spiritual strength was stronger than an ordinary rank 3 alchemist. However, Xiao Yan was more inclined towards luck. He believed that it was because of his good luck that he was able to safely pass through this stage. In Xiao Yan's words, it was merely a fluke. Although the pill fusion process had been announced to be over, Xiao Yan's face had already turned pale. Even though he had already become a rank 3 alchemist, refining a rank 3 medicinal pill was not so easy. The amount of spiritual strength that was needed to be exhausted in this process was similarly enormous. Based on Xiao Yan's current spiritual strength, his spiritual strength would be completely exhausted after he finished refining the Bodhi returning pill. Of course, if he did not experience the previous failure, his condition would naturally be much better. Unfortunately, there were no ifs in this world. After the pill fusion was completed, he could temporarily breathe a sigh of relief. However, it would not be long before he would once again have to concentrate on the next pill formation process. Beautiful flames rose within the enormous green-gold medicinal cauldron. A cluster of fist-sized viscous liquid was leisurely rotating within the flames. From time to time, a surge of energy would be emitted from it, causing the surrounding flames to be pushed back a little. Immediately after, the flames would once again pounce ferociously like hungry wolves. The same scene within the medicinal cauldron repeated over and over again. The battle between the flames and the viscous liquid did not seem to end. Xiao Yan, who was seated on the mountain peak, did not move his body. The flame mantra chi method followed, and strands of natural energy from the surroundings seemed to be attracted to gather toward Xiao Yan. While refining medicine, the consumption of do qi was similarly not small. In order to refine those special medicinal ingredients as soon as possible, Xiao Yan had no choice but to expend even more do qi to increase the strength of the heavenly flame. After using it for a long period of time, his body would naturally not be able to endure it. To be able to rely on the strength of a 6-star half-emperor to endure, until now was already extremely good. Xiao Yan had not been sitting for 3 days. In the outside world, the original 3 great beast kings of the Shilin mountain range had now been joined by a new Bao. This more or less caused Tianying and the other 2 to feel conflicted emotionally. However, since this person was brought here by Xiao Yan, they naturally could not say much. Although they were usually amiable when they saw him, they had invisibly distanced themselves from him. Being isolated by these 3, Bao felt rather helpless in his heart. He was definitely unable to return to his original home, but there was no place for him to stay in the Shilin mountain range. This caused him to be at a loss as to where he should go. He could only place his hopes on Xiao Yan. The latter was very powerful. Since he was able to bring him here, he naturally had his own intentions. On the other side, Tianying and the other 2 actually did not know how to treat Bao. In terms of friends, it could be said that they did not know each other, let alone acquaintances. Although Abao had some relationship with Xiao Yan, the three of them had known Abao much earlier in comparison. They were even friends who had gone through life and death with each other. This Abao was truly too unfamiliar. Boss, do you think that this fellow will be up to no good? He has been staying on that mountain since 2 months ago and has been watching Xiao Yan day and night. Who knows if anything good will happen to him? On a mountain peak, Yanshi frowned as he stared at Abao, who was standing on a mountain peak closer to Xiao Yan. Both of his eyes involuntarily revealed a worried expression. To them, Abao was ultimately an outsider. No one knew what he was thinking. Once he had ill intentions towards Xiao Yan, it would still be extremely dangerous even with the three of them watching. Let's wait and see first. Don't jump to conclusions. It is fine if nothing happens. However, if something happens, we must not allow him to leave alive. Keep a close eye on him in the future. Be careful that he does not do anything that he should not do. Sky Eagle could not help but frown when he heard this. How could he not understand the meaning behind Yanshi's words? However, this person was after all brought back by Xiao Yan. Since the latter had chosen to believe him, Sky Eagle naturally had no reason to doubt him. Of course, this was only effective under the premise that Xiao Yan was watching. Since Abao was able to obediently follow Xiao Yan back, he should naturally be aware that Xiao Yan's fighting strength was far from what an ordinary person could compare with. What made Sky Eagle suspect was that the reason why Abao was obedient was likely because he was afraid of Xiao Yan's strength. If anything happened to the latter, it would likely be troublesome. Sky Eagle quietly said in his heart. His gaze turned and looked at Xiao Yan, who was currently seated on the mountain peak. He could not help but feel a little worried in his heart. He was not worried about whether the returning Bodhi pill could be successfully refined. Instead, he was worried about whether Xiao Yan would be harmed. This was something that he could not tolerate. It was also something that he would never allow to happen. He turned his head and looked at Xiao Yan's side. He had used 3 days to recover his condition. Even though the effect was not ideal, it was not a problem if he used it to maintain the refinement of the medicinal pill. After passing the stage of fusing the pill, the next step was to condense the pill. The so-called condensing of the pill was to further fuse the irregular medicinal strength, causing the medicinal pill to truly take shape. The medicinal strength within the medicinal pill also had to completely fuse into one. Only then could it truly be called condensing the pill. The final result of condensing the pill would be a perfectly round medicinal pill. The pill fragrance would be released, indicating that the medicinal strength had solidified. It could truly be called a medicinal pill. As for pill nurturing, it was a process where the quality of the medicinal pill underwent a sublimation. This process completely depended on the alchemist's understanding of alchemy. It tested the alchemist's level in various aspects of alchemy. Ultimately, the quality of the medicinal pill also indicated the alchemist's ability. /54_. Chapter 760. Compared to fusing a pill, the method of condensing a pill appeared to be much simpler. Of course, just because it appeared to be easy did not mean that it was similarly easy to do. The process of condensing a pill tested an alchemist's control over both his spiritual strength and flame. His spiritual strength was used to condense the medicinal strength of the medicinal pill, as well as the temperature of the flame. If there was even the slightest difference during this process, it was possible that all the previous efforts would be wasted. With the flow of time, the originally fist-sized mottled viscous liquid within the green-gold medicinal cauldron gradually solidified. Finally, it turned into a longan-sized pill. Waves of surging energy were occasionally emitted from within it. It collided with the inner walls of the medicinal cauldron and emitted waves of a groaning sound. The activity on this side was naturally seen by Tianying's group. The hearts of the three of them were also filled with doubt. They were true laymen when it came to alchemy. This little activity was really difficult for them to discern anything. Hence, all of their hearts were both shocked and joyful. Their eyes looked at Xiao Yan, who had been seated on the mountain peak for nearly half a year. A worried expression was revealed between their brows. This fellow has already been seated there for half a year. I wonder if he has successfully refined the medicinal pill. The flame lion frowned as he stared at Xiao Yan, who was seated in front of the medicinal cauldron on the distant mountain peak. His tone was filled with doubt as he spoke. "Let's not worry blindly. How can the matters of an alchemist be known by the both of us? He is refining a Tier 3 medicinal pill. Even a Tier 2 medicinal pill requires a couple of months to refine. How can the time needed to refine a Tier 3 medicinal pill be any shorter?" Xiong Gang by the side displayed an appearance as though he had already expected this. However, from the way he knitted his brows, his heart was not as relaxed as his words. "Regardless of whether the refinement is successful or not, we cannot easily interfere. We can only wait for him to stop. The matters of an alchemist are indeed not something that we can understand. If he happens to be at a crucial moment and is disturbed by us, we cannot bear this responsibility." Tianning frowned and said in a deep voice. The two people by the side nodded their heads with solemn expressions when they heard this. The Bodhi returning pill was a medicinal pill that was refined for Lungbing Shuang. Before ensuring that the medicinal pill was refined, they would not dare to randomly intervene. Once something happened, even if Xiaoyan did not find trouble with them, Lungbing Shuang would definitely not let them off easily. They were clearly aware of how terrifying that woman was. Also, don't forget about that guy. Keep a close eye on him. Xiaoyan has been refining medicine for almost half a year. I think it won't be long before he finishes. We can't let anything happen to him at this time. Understood. Soon after, Tianying's gaze once again landed on Ah Bao. Currently, other than quietly waiting for Xiaoyan's medicinal pill to be refined, the only other thing that they were worried about was Ah Bao. As the saying goes, time is like flowing water, flowing and never returning. In the blink of an eye, another half a month had passed. The pill-forming process was finally completed. The originally uneven surface of the longan-sized medicinal pill gradually became smooth and sleek under the heavenly flame. The moment the pill-forming process was completed, a rich pill fragrance was emitted from the medicinal cauldron and gradually spread in all directions from the mountain peak. This is the pill fragrance. That's right, this is definitely the pill fragrance. The appearance of the pill fragrance means that the refinement of the medicinal pill is gradually coming to an end. The Bodhi returning pill is about to be completed. On the mountain peak in the distance, Tianying's trio were sensitive enough to smell the faint pill fragrance in the air. Immediately, the three of them were wild with joy in their hearts. Once the Bodhi returning pill was successfully refined, there was hope that the injuries within Lung Bingshuang's body would recover. At that time, the cold flow that spread out from the interior of Shilin would also be interrupted. This was undoubtedly a good thing for the entire Shilin mountain range. Xiao Yan's figure was seated cross-legged on the peak of the mountain. Both of his eyes were tightly shut, and his brows were tightly knitted. His pale face and bean-sized beads of perspiration on his forehead all described Xiao Yan's current condition. After nearly half a year of continuous pill refinement, even a rank 3 alchemist should have reached his limit. However, he had finally reached the most important stage of pill formation. Pill formation could be said to be important, but it could also be said to be unimportant. The pill formation stage could be said to be dispensable. Regardless of whether Xiao Yan persevered or not, the Bodhi returning pill was considered to have been completed after the pill formation. Even if it did not undergo pill formation, it could still be used. Of course, even if this was the case, the pill formation process also had its purpose. Pill formation was able to raise the quality of the pill that had already been refined. This step was related to the effect that the pill could unleash. As an alchemist, he naturally had to pursue perfection. Hence, Xiaoyan did not omit that last step. It was also because of this that no matter what, Xiaoyan would control the situation within the medicinal cauldron. Regardless of whether it was in terms of spiritual strength or the temperature of the flame, Xiaoyan would definitely maintain it in an absolutely stable state. This was not only for the icy spirit frozen liquid. At the same time, it was also to prove his ability as a rank 3 alchemist. Xiaoyan also wanted to understand just where his true limit was. Large beads of perspiration had already drenched Xiaoyan's clothes. With the flow of time, Xiaoyan's expression became increasingly pale. The dou-qi within his body was still wildly being poured into the medicinal cauldron in front of him. Even though there was not much left, Xiaoyan still squeezed every single cell in his body, forcefully extracting energy from within in order to use it for the pill formation of the Bodhi-returning pill. At this very moment, the glow on the dark black soul bead in his mind had also gradually dimmed. The originally ink-like dark black color gradually became grayish. Finally, it actually showed some signs of becoming transparent. Fortunately, the pill formation process had already ended. The pill formation process did not require too much effort. Within a short few days, the pill formation process had already officially ended. What he had to face next? Rumble. The instant Xiaoyan was about to complete the pill refinement in the medicinal cauldron, the sky above his head suddenly turned dark. The color of the sky changed. The dense dark clouds were like an enormous strange bird suspended above Xiaoyan's head, covering a large part of the mountain forest below. Pill lightning. The pale-faced Xiaoyan withdrew his gaze from the medicinal cauldron in front of him. He lifted his head and looked at the thunderclouds that were churning intensely in the sky. The corners of his pale lips were lifted into a smile at this moment. In the eyes of others, the pill lightning was as frightening as a demon. However, in his eyes, it was the best medicine. Northern King, it is your turn. Chapter 761. The sky above the vast and boundless mountain forest was covered by a dark black thundercloud that blotted out the sun. It was just like an enormous curtain. The originally bright and beautiful mountain forest below had suddenly become completely dark. The rumbling thunder was just like the roar of a huge beast. Under the thunder, the entire mountain range below seemed to tremble. A terrifying destructive aura spread from the thundercloud. Occasionally, thunderbolts would flicker from within, causing one's heart to tremble. This scene really gave off the feeling of the end of the world. The appearance of this scene caused the expressions of the Tianning trio, who were constantly guarding Xiaoyan, and Ah Bao, who was currently closest to Xiaoyan, to change. Immediately, the four figures moved in unison. They swiftly flew towards Xiaoyan, who was still seated on the mountain peak. The descent of the pill lightning was a destructive force that was second to none in this world. Under this force, unless the medicinal pill was destroyed, everything that blocked the pill lightning would be mercilessly and forcefully destroyed by it. The terror of the pill lightning was publicly acknowledged by everyone on the continent. Damn it. I have been so focused on this brat that I have forgotten about the pill lightning. Its terror is far from something that this brat can compare with. We must be quick. Xiaoyan does not have much strength left. Once the pill lightning falls, he will be finished. Tianying's body swiftly rushed to Xiaoyan's side. At the same time, his mouth let out an anxious cry. The expression on his face was extremely grave. Even they did not have much confidence in being able to block a pill lightning of this level. However, Xiaoyan was currently in danger, and they could not be bothered with so much. No matter what, nothing must happen to Xiaoyan. As for Ah Bao, the three brothers did not have the mood to care about him at this moment. Currently, everything was focused on Xiaoyan. If anything happened to Xiaoyan, the three brothers would feel guilty for the rest of their lives even if the returning Bodhisattva pill was completed. Of course, they did not know that Ah Bao was also thinking about how to help Xiaoyan at this moment. The moment these four people moved, the black mass of thunder clouds in the distant sky began to churn intensely at this moment. Soon after, an earth-shaking rumbling thunder sounded. A dark black shocking thunderbolt shot out from the thunder clouds and violently smashed toward Xiaoyan below. Damn it. Quick, faster. On the other side, the expressions of the Tianying trio changed. However, before they could do anything, the frightening thunderbolt had already descended and headed straight for Xiaoyan's head. The pale-faced Xiaoyan flicked his finger when the four of them saw that the thunderbolt was only a couple of 100 feet from Xiaoyan's head. A dark black light instantly shot out from the storage ring on his finger. It was just like an arrow that instantly penetrated the empty space. Soon after, it heavily collided with the frightening thunderbolt that was heading toward him. Boom! Immediately, an earth-shaking explosion resounded across the 9 heavens. A frightening energy storm instantly swept out from between the two. The four of them, who had yet to step forward, were caught off guard and were violently sent flying by the energy storm. After the four of them stabilized their bodies 1,000 feet away, they focused their eyes and were shocked to see a purple-gold human figure standing proudly in the sky. The human figure was expressionless. His eyes were empty. At this moment, he stood proudly in the sky like an invincible giant god. He had easily disintegrated the frightening thunderbolt that had fallen heavily a moment ago. Looking at the purple-gold human figure, who else could it be other than the Northern King? The thunderbolt spread and left a hole the size of an ordinary person's fist on the Northern King's chest. If such a heavy blow landed on an ordinary person's body, even if that person was lucky enough to not die, he would definitely be seriously injured. Although the Northern King had suffered such a heavy blow at this moment, numerous black thunderbolts were swiftly emitted from within his body. They swiftly flowed over the enormous hole. Within a short couple of breaths, the hole had once again become flat. If one were to carefully observe it, one would discover that the purple-gold color that covered the Northern King's body was becoming denser. This indicated that the Northern King's strength as a one-star Dodi was gradually increasing. Pill lightning was indeed the best medicine for the Northern King to advance his strength. The faces of the 4 people who had been forced back immediately revealed shocked expressions when they saw this scene in front of them. The 4 of them had seen the Northern King before and knew that he was a puppet. His strength was stronger than any of the 4 of them. However, they did not expect the Northern King to be this strong. Just from this point alone, it was likely that even an ordinary elite Dodi would not have the courage and strength to shake the pill lightning. This fellow, he never planned on getting our help from the start. Hey, as expected, not only is he a monster himself, but even the things in his hands are also extremely monstrous. The strength of this puppet has long since surpassed that of a Dodi. TSK, we have trained for hundreds of years, but we are merely 9-star Bandi. In the end, we are actually not as strong as a puppet. We are truly ashamed. The eyes of the 3 brothers revealed shock as they stared at the Northern King in the sky. They immediately faced each other. Their eyes involuntarily revealed a sweaty expression. At the same time, Bao, who was on the other mountain peak, was also in a similar state. Suddenly, the Northern King, who was standing in the sky, raised his head and cried out. His voice was indifferent and did not contain the slightest emotion or fear. It was as though he was provoking the Northern King. He wanted to shatter this pill lightning. Today, the Northern King wanted to fight against the strength of this world. Rumble. The Northern King's cry seemed to have caused the thunderclouds to sense a provocation and threat. The originally churning thunderbolts became even more intense at this moment. Thunderbolts rolled and churned unceasingly. The thunderbolts that would occasionally descend were like numerous horned dragons. Bang! Until a certain moment, as the thunderclouds churned, another shocking bolt of lightning suddenly descended. This thunderbolt was even thicker and stronger. Just by looking at it, one could tell that it was much stronger than the previous one. The frightening aura that spread from it caused one's back to feel a chill. The 4 people in the distance involuntarily swallowed a mouthful of saliva when they saw this. They were certain that if they were in the Northern King's shoes, it was likely that they would lose all their fighting strength with just this thunderbolt. However, the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth carried an excited smile as he sat cross-legged on the mountain peak at this moment. /54_. Chapter 762. From Xiao Yan's point of view, the strength of the pill lightning did not pose any threat to him. Instead, it was filled with an endless amount of temptation. This point was just like a naked beauty. No matter how she swayed her body in front of you, it might cause one to feel that it was boring. However, if she was dressed in a sexy manner, perhaps a small action would cause one to go crazy. Perhaps at this moment, this pill lightning was like this in Xiao Yan's eyes. Bang! Soon after, an earth-shaking explosion once again resounded over the clouds. The entire mountain range below shook intensely at this moment. The mountain forest swayed and the huge rocks shook. It was as though an earthquake had occurred. The thunderbolt was broken. The Northern King continued to stand proudly. The purple-gold color on its body was extremely dense. Even the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth was curled higher and higher. On the other hand, the thundercloud in the sky trembled intensely. It appeared to be furious and also frightened. Rumble! 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 Soon after, mighty thunderbolts arrived one after another. They appeared endless. The Northern King became increasingly courageous as it fought. Regardless of how strong the thunderbolts were, they were unable to withstand a single blow from the Northern King's fist. Regardless of how strong the thunderbolts were, the Northern King was not afraid. It could be said that he would deal with whatever came his way. In a few hours, the Northern King had continuously received nearly 100 bolts of lightning. However, in the end, the Northern King still stood proudly in the sky. On the other hand, the huge thundercloud seemed to have shrunk. The thundercloud that originally covered the sky had now shrunk to the point where it could only cover the few mountains below. Seeing such a scene in the sky, the 4 people outside the battle circle were already dumbfounded. These 4 people had naturally discovered the change in the Northern King's body. The Northern King's strength seemed to be growing in the face of the thunderbolts. Each time the thunderbolt struck, the Northern King's strength would become even greater. After nearly 100 strikes, the Northern King's strength was likely comparable to an advanced 1-star Do-D. It was difficult to imagine just how much the Northern King's strength would rise once the thundercloud in the sky completely scattered. At the same time, Xiaoyan, who was sitting cross-legged on the mountain peak, had already swallowed a medicinal pill that recovered Do-Qi and was doing his best to refine it. The loss of soul energy made Xiaoyan's head feel heavier and heavier. This was a sign that he was about to faint. But before that, Xiaoyan still had something to resolve. That was the pill in the cauldron in front of him. Bodhi returning pill. Xiaoyan had already set up the pill transforming ring long ago. His goal was to prepare for this final moment. Now that the time had come, there was not much Do-Qi left in his body. In order to have the ability to retrieve the medicinal pill from the medicinal cauldron in front of him, Xiaoyan had no choice but to endure for a little longer. Buzz buzz buzz. It was also at this moment that the Bodhisattva returning pill, that had already been refined within the medicinal cauldron, seemed to have come alive. The perfectly round medicinal pill violently trembled within the medicinal cauldron, before heavily colliding against the inner wall of the medicinal cauldron. Clang! Immediately, a bell-like sound spread. Soon after, however, Xiaoyan, who was seated cross-legged, waved his large hand. The top cover of the medicinal cauldron in front of him emitted a bang sound as it opened. In the next moment, a round medicinal pill automatically leaped out from within. After being distorted for a moment in midair, it transformed into a human shape. From the looks of it, it was actually no different from Xiaoyan. Jie. Thank you very much. I have been nurtured in your medicinal cauldron for half a month. The strength in my body has become even stronger. Thank you for giving me this body. But now I should leave. Cuckoo, leave? Do you think that you can leave? Hearing the strange laughter that was emitted from the mouth of this Xiaoyan in front of him, Xiaoyan, who was the actual body, coldly laughed. Since he was able to refine the latter, how could he easily allow him to leave? Oh. Ga. I really can't think of any method that the current you can use to make me stay. The human figure once again laughed strangely. His tone was filled with cold laughter. It seemed that he did not believe that Xiaoyan, who was currently in such a weak state, would have any method to make him stay. If they were to compare strength with his current peak condition, it would be as easy as flipping his hand if he wanted to kill Xiaoyan. Cuckoo, Xiaoyan laughed faintly. He did not explain further. Instead, he raised both of his hands. Following the thought in his heart, his 10 fingers moved together. Complicated seals were swiftly formed from his fingertips. At the same time, a strange ring of fire suddenly rose around the human figure's body. This is the transforming pill ring. How did you? Transforming pill ring withdraw. Xiaoyan completely ignored the shocked expression that was revealed on the latter's face. His tone was indifferent as he coldly spat out a sentence from his mouth. Soon after, the fire halo that surrounded the human figure was swiftly withdrawn. Damn it. So what if it's the transforming pill ring? I don't believe that I can't break this damn thing today. Knowing that there was no way to retreat, the human figure immediately made up his mind. He decided to use offense as a form of defense. If he could break it, he would naturally be free to move forward. If he could not, he could only accept his fate. Bang bang bang. Unfortunately, no matter how much he struggled, the energy that gushed out from his palm became increasingly thin. Soon after, a mysterious light wrapped around his entire body. In a short moment, the huge human figure once again returned to the size of a pill. Xiaoyan reached out his hand and beckoned. The pill was kept in a jade bottle that he had prepared beforehand. With a flip of his hand, he kept it in his storage ring. Soon after, Xiaoyan lifted his gaze and looked at the sky above his head once again. At this moment, the thunderclouds were about to disperse. Hundreds of thunderbolts bombarded the Northern King's body. In the end, the only result was that the latter had become even more powerful. Bang! After another fierce bombardment, the dark black thunderclouds that had covered the entire mountain forest in the sky finally scattered at this moment. When one looked at the sky again, it was already close to dusk. The pill lightning scattered, and the Northern King once again returned in front of Xiaoyan. At this moment, the latter had already fainted. However, he could not wait to find out about the Northern King's current condition. Therefore, he had forcefully endured. The Northern King arrived in front of Xiaoyan. A smile surfaced on the latter's pale face. He forcefully opened his eyes and swept them over the Northern King in front of him. When he saw the increasingly dense purple-gold color on the Northern King's body, Xiaoyan involuntarily nodded. Just from this point alone, the strength of the current Northern King was likely comparable to an initial 2-star Dodi. This was something that he had not expected. /54_. Chapter 763. After the pill lightning scattered, Xiaoyan, who had subdued the Bodhi returning pill, collapsed on the top of the cliff and fell into a deep sleep. After refining pills for over half a year, Xiaoyan's body and mind had reached an extremely weak state. Xiaoyan really needed to rest right now. However, he had never imagined that this sleep would last for half a month. During this half a month, Xiaoyan's body lay on the top of the cliff like a corpse. The wind could not move him at all. The Northern King was like a metal tower, guarding Xiaoyan's side. No one was allowed to take half a step closer with him standing there, not even the 3 sky eagles. This point caused the hearts of these 3 brothers to be extremely anxious. Although the medicinal pill had already been refined, their hearts were extremely worried when they saw Xiaoyan's manner. They were afraid that something would happen to Xiaoyan because he was refining the medicinal pill. That would really be a loss for the 3 of them. During this half a month, Tianying's group and Abao had confessed to each other about the matter from before. Although Abao admitted that his actions were to help Xiaoyan, the hearts of Tianying's group still contained some doubt. Abao was also in a state of tacit agreement. If he wanted to truly join this place, he naturally had to have doubts from the start. Otherwise, it would be laughable if he really treated everyone here as a greenhorn. This was the Shilin mountain range, the place where all the powerful magical beasts gathered in the Shilin region. They did not accept mediocre people here. At the same time, news of the natural phenomenon that had appeared in the Shilin mountain range half a month ago rapidly spread in the outside world. The 4 great clans, the Bai clan. Father, have you heard? It happened half a month ago. Bai Ying and his son were seated in the discussion hall. At this moment, Bai Ying held a cup of tea in his hand. He listened to Bai Zhan's statement while gently sipping the tea in his cup. When he heard Bai Zhan's words, Bai Ying put down the teacup in his hand. He lifted his gaze and looked at Bai Zhan opposite him. He nodded and said, "Of course I've heard of it. How can I not have heard of such a spectacular sight when the thunderclouds covered the entire mountain range? What do you think it is? Is someone undergoing an emperor tribulation or something else?" Bai Zhan frowned slightly and asked in a doubtful tone. "Emperor tribulation? You should know what it means. Moreover, it's not like you haven't seen something like that before. Although it's possible, I don't think it's an emperor tribulation. Then what is it?" Bai Ying smiled as he stared at Bai Zhan and asked, "What are you talking about? Then what are the other things you were referring to just now?" "Pill lightning?" Bai Zhan was startled and he could not help but ask. Yes, it shouldn't be wrong. A tier 3 pill? Otherwise, ordinary tier 2 medicinal pills wouldn't be able to summon that level of pill lightning. When he heard Bai Ying's guess, Bai Zhan quickly spoke. Soon after, the father and son looked at each other, and the corners of their mouths lifted, revealing a meaningful smile. It's been half a year since that guy last disappeared. I don't think there's a second person who can create such a scene in the Shilin mountain range, Bai Ying said with a smile. Surprise involuntarily flowed out from his eyes. The latter had actually chosen the Shilin mountain range to refine pills. Was he not afraid of being targeted by the guy inside? However, when he thought about it, it made sense. Given the latter's strength and personality, he might feel safer in the Shilin mountain range compared to refining pills in human territory. Xiaoyan. Bai Zhan's eyes narrowed as he muttered the name. He could not help but think back to half a year ago. As the young master of the Bai clan, he had actually been threatened by Xiaoyan and forced to hand over his precious monster core. Even now, he felt extremely depressed when he thought about it. Father, should we send someone to take a look? What if those 3 clans? There is no need. Let them go if they want to. Since Xiaoyan dared to choose that place to refine medicine, he would not do so without a certain degree of confidence. If the 3 clans really have the guts to go, then let them go. Let's see how many of them go and how many of them return. Bai Ying laughed coldly before Bai Zhan's words sounded. Currently, those 3 clans had placed Xiaoyan on the blacklist of those who must be killed. Because of him, the 3 clans had each lost a Do D class expert. This was undoubtedly a serious blow to the clans. From the looks of it, it seemed that only his Bai clan was not affected. Alright, you should go back and train. Make some preparations. I heard that the strength of that brat from the Zhuo clan is about to enter the 3-star Do D class. He is the future hope of the Zhuo clan. Bai Ying narrowed his eyes. A disdain was revealed deep within his eyes. The expression on Bai Zhan's face paused when he heard this. He immediately laughed softly, stood up, and left the large hall. Xiaoyan, just what kind of person are you? I am really curious. Unfortunately, the more curious I am, the more I should stop. Curiosity kills the cat. Only by being careful can one sail a boat for 10,000 years. A faint sigh sounded within the large hall. Immediately, Bai Ying, who was seated on a chair, gradually distorted his body and slowly disappeared. Shilin Mountain Range. Xiaoyan, who had been in a deep slumber for half a month on the mountain peak, finally woke up at this moment. Xiaoyan subconsciously raised his right hand to block the sunlight the moment the bright sunlight shot into his eyes. It was only a couple of breaths later that Xiaoyan gradually adapted to the sunlight that seeped through the gaps between his fingers. Xiaoyan sat up and saw the Northern King standing guard by his side. His eyes swept across the sky, but Tianying's group was nowhere to be seen. A thought passed through his heart, and a vast and mighty spiritual strength swiftly spread out from deep within his brows. In the blink of an eye, he had discovered the traces of these 4 people. Half a month of deep sleep had allowed Xiaoyan's condition in all aspects to once again recover to its peak. It must be said that no matter how much rest he had, it was not as comfortable as having a good sleep. Xiaoyan smiled slightly. His body once again sat down. He did not intend to disturb the 4 of them. At this moment, Xiaoyan still had something to do. Xiaoyan lifted his hand and rubbed the patterns on the Luo Tian cauldron in front of him. He involuntarily felt some pity in his heart. He had been in a deep slumber for half a month, and the medicinal cauldron in front of him had been blown by the wind for half a month. This caused Xiaoyan to feel a little reluctant in his heart. Soon after, the hand that was rubbing the medicinal cauldron gently trembled. With a pop sound, a fierce flame once again rose within the medicinal cauldron. The Bodhi returning pill had been refined. Next, Xiaoyan planned to refine the Emperor Tribulation pill. /54_. Chapter 764. Xiaoyan used half a year to finally complete the refinement of the returning Bodhisattva pill. However, Xiaoyan did not immediately start refining the Icy Spirit pill. Instead, he restarted the medicinal cauldron and prepared to refine the Emperor Tribulation pill. Xiaoyan already had 1 Emperor Tribulation pill on him. Naturally, he did not need more. The Emperor Tribulation pill that Xiaoyan was currently refining was prepared for the 4 of them. Tianying and the other 2 had already reached the peak of the advanced 9-star half-martial Emperor realm. They only lacked an opportunity to truly break through to the Do D realm. This opportunity was the Emperor Tribulation pill. Xiaoyan had already promised the 3 of them that he would refine an Emperor Tribulation pill for each of them. However, due to various reasons he was unable to refine one in the past. However, such a great opportunity was now placed in front of Xiaoyan. How could he easily miss it? As for Ah Bao, Xiaoyan and him were at most in an employer-employee relationship. If they were closer, they were merely acquaintances. The reason why Xiaoyan helped Ah Bao was because Xiaoyan had taken a fancy to Ah Bao's future potential. Although most of the magical beasts gathered in the Shilin mountain range, there were very few truly powerful magical beasts. Even though Tianing and the other two had already broken through to the Dodi class, they were merely 3 elite Dodi. Without the addition of Lung Bingshuang, the overall strength of the Shilin mountain range could be said to be extremely weak. It was impossible for them to be compared with the factions in the outside world, let alone stand opposite the 4 great sections. Even if the addition of Ah Bao could not cause the overall strength of the Shilin mountain range to increase, the addition of an elite Dodi would at least share some of the pressure for the Shilin mountain range. Of course, from the current point of view, the current Ah Bao only had expectations. He was only a future elite Dodi. As for now, whether they could recruit him was the most important thing. As for how to recruit him, the Emperor Tribulation Pill was undoubtedly the best choice. Given Xiaoyan's status as a rank 3 alchemist and the allure of the Emperor Trial Pill, Ah Bao had no reason to reject him. Moreover, as long as Ah Bao could stay in the Shilin mountain range for a period of time, Xiaoyan could guarantee that he would never leave again. After all, the treatment and resources that he could enjoy in this place were undoubtedly many times better than the outside world. As long as he was not a fool, he would definitely not easily leave this place. The Emperor Tribulation Pill was an Emperor-grade pill. For the current Xiaoyan, it was undoubtedly much easier to refine. Whether it was in terms of the strength of his spiritual strength or Do Qi, Xiaoyan did not feel any pressure refining an Emperor Tribulation Pill. It was also because of this that Xiaoyan planned to refine 4 Emperor Tribulation Pills at the same time. As soon as he thought of doing so, the lid of the medicinal cauldron was opened and 4 sets of medicinal ingredients for refining the Emperor Tribulation Pill were thrown into the medicinal cauldron by Xiaoyan. Soon after, the raging flame pounced on the medicinal ingredients like a hungry wolf. The frightening temperature was completely displayed at this moment. Each medicinal ingredient rapidly withered under the high temperature of the heavenly flame. Within a short 4 hours, all the medicinal ingredients that were thrown into the medicinal cauldron had turned into clusters of medicinal liquid and powder. With the increase in his strength, refining an Emperor-grade pill was as easy as flipping his hand for Xiaoyan. Even though he was refining 4 Emperor-grade pills at the same time, Xiaoyan was still able to easily refine them. Half a month. In less than half a month, it was time to fuse the 4 Emperor Tribulation Pills. Moreover, the purity of each cluster of medicinal liquid was impeccable, and all of them were in their best condition. It was also because of this that the quality and medicinal properties of the pills refined would naturally be even more perfect. In the outside world, Tianing and the other 3 had also discovered Xiaoyan's unusual condition. Originally, they thought that the latter would look for them after he woke up. However, they did not expect that the latter would wake up and actually refine pills again. This fellow, don't tell me that he is already refining the ice spirit pill. What a lunatic. No, that's impossible. I heard him say that the last medicinal ingredient needed to refine the ice spirit pill, which is also the most important one, is the ice spirit liquid. From the looks of it, he has yet to hand over the Bodhi returning pill to Sir. Therefore, it is impossible for him to obtain the ice spirit liquid, and even more impossible for him to start refining the ice spirit pill. Tianing gently shook his head and retorted when he heard Xiongang's words. However, just as Xionggang was about to voice his doubts, the sky above Xiaoyan's head suddenly changed. The color of the sky changed and dark clouds churned. From the looks of it, pill lightning was gathering again. This is pill lightning. How can it be so fast? The last time it took half a year. Why is this? Tianing and the other 2 were astonished. They did not expect the pill lightning to come so quickly this time. However, looking at this pill lightning, it seems to be much smaller than the previous one. The pills that he is refining should not be a tier 3 pill. Very quickly, the few of them found some clues from the pill lightning. This time around, the 4 of them did not move when the pill lightning appeared. They did not intend to step forward and help. With the experience from the last time, they clearly understood in their hearts that Xiaoyan did not need their help in dealing with this pill lightning. Soon after, thunderbolts fell from the high sky. Although Xiaoyan was refining D-tier medicinal pills, The pill lightning that was created by 4 D-tier medicinal pills was not weak. The merging of the 4 thunderbolts was undoubtedly even stronger. However, to the North King, these bolts of lightning were nothing. Even if the 4 bolts of pill lightning were to strike him together, they would not be able to withstand it. With the tempering of these thunderbolts, the purple-gold color on the Northern King's body became denser. After being struck by dozens of thunderbolts, the Northern King's strength had successfully advanced to a new level. Intermediate 2-star Do-D. Of course, after exhausting all of these thunderbolts, the Northern King's strength had barely reached this level. It was likely that it was still lacking if it wanted to truly break through. Xiaoyan adopted an indifferent attitude toward this. It was merely a pill lightning that was ignited by a D-tier medicinal pill. He did not place much hope on it. At this moment, the only thing that could truly help the Northern King's strength was the pill lightning that was ignited by a Tier 3 medicinal pill or above. Only then could it truly help the Northern King. These were merely small fries. After the pill lightning scattered, Xiaoyan easily kept the 4 medicinal pills into a jade bottle, after which he put away the medicinal cauldron in front of him. He turned around and smiled as he looked at Tianying's group. After over half a year of painstakingly refining medicine, he had already obtained the returning Bodhisattva pill and the Emperor Calamity pill. Next, Xiaoyan only needed to wait for the Icy Spirit cold liquid to be ready before he could begin refining the Icy Spirit pill. Xiaoyan smiled and withdrew his thoughts. After which, he faced the 4 people from Tianying. /54_M. Chapter 765. Shilin Mountain Range, within Tianying's cave dwelling. Xiaoyan, Tianying, and the rest were a total of 5 people. Each of them was seated in a large hall. Haha, young brother Xiaoyan, you have really caused us to be extremely anxious while refining the medicinal pill this time around. We are afraid that something will happen while you are refining the medicinal pill. If that happens, we will not be able to bear the responsibility. The Flame Lion first glanced at Bao. Only then did he look at Xiaoyan and spoke in a seemingly joking manner. A glint involuntarily flashed deep within Xiaoyan's eyes when he heard this. He smiled and said, "Thank you for your concern. The medicinal pill refinement this time around can be considered smooth. In that case, the returning Bodhisattva pill has been successfully refined?" Even though he had already seen the pill lightning, Tianying still could not resist asking. Xiaoyan pursed his mouth and smiled when he heard this. He nodded and said, "I was lucky enough to succeed. I was lucky enough to successfully refine it. At least I didn't let you down." TSK, young brother Xiaoyan is really a genius of this generation. Not only do you possess great strength, but your medicinal pill refinement skills are also peerless in this world. Ha 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 ha. Sky Eagle smiled, his words actually having a hint of flattery in them. Soon after, everyone present began to laugh out loud. After which, they joked a little before Xiaoyan withdrew his emotions. His expression became serious as he said, "Brothers, this time around, I have something that I intend to give to everyone." Xiaoyan purposely smiled mysteriously after saying these words. After which, he flipped his hand and a jade bottle appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. There were 4 round medicinal pills within the jade bottle. Despite being separated by the jade bottle, there was already a medicinal fragrance spreading from within, causing one to feel comfortable after smelling it. The quiet do-chi within one's body actually began to leap at this moment. The expressions of Tianying and the other 3 immediately changed when they sensed the change in the aura within their bodies. They were involuntarily surprised in their hearts. Just what kind of medicinal pill was this? It was actually able to cause a change in their auras? Soon after, Tianying's eyes hardened. He seemed to already have an answer in his heart. His eyes were instantly lifted, stared at Xiaoyan and exclaimed, Don't tell me this is. Haha, old brother's guess is right. This is the Emperor Tribulation Pill. Hua. The expressions of the other 3 people present suddenly changed when the soft laughter from Xiaoyan's mouth sounded. All of them were surprised. Could it be that the medicinal pill that Xiaoyan had refined earlier was this Emperor Calamity Pill? With this thought in their hearts, the expressions of the few of them involuntarily changed as they looked at the 4 medicinal pills within the jade bottle. Their hearts were filled with hesitation as a fiery hot emotion involuntarily rose from the bottom of their hearts. the Emperor Calamity Pill. As long as they possessed this thing, the strength of the few people present would have a chance to advance by another step. Using it to break through to the Do D class was undoubtedly the greatest dream of the few of them. In the past, they had no dealings with humans. They could even be said to treat humans as enemies. There was no chance for them to obtain the Emperor Tribulation Elixir. But now, the Emperor Tribulation Elixir was placed in front of them, causing them to be at a loss. Xiaoyan involuntarily smiled when he saw this scene. After which he lifted his other hand. A glow flashed in his palm, and a jade box appeared. The moment the jade box appeared, a dense bloody aura that could not be hidden spread out from the jade box. The expressions of the other 4 people present suddenly changed wildly. An extremely great pressure involuntarily spread within their hearts. It was not difficult to imagine just what kind of horror they were feeling in their hearts at this moment. Brother Xiaoyan, what is this thing? Faced with this frightening aura, even with Tianying's character, his aura involuntarily trembled. This kind of suppression that originated from deep within his soul caused him to have difficulty raising his head. This is the monster core of a 5-star Do D class magical beast. I obtained it from the auction. Xiaoyan did not dare to joke any longer when he saw that the 4 people in front of him had actually revealed such a terrified manner. His face was serious as he spoke. The few of them slowly sighed in relief when they heard these words. A moment ago, they had really had difficulty moving under that frightening pressure. However, after learning that the thing within the jade box was an inanimate object, they no longer had anything to worry about. However, the shocking pressure from the magical beast still caused their minds to be uneasy. I intend to give this thing to all of you. If you are able to swallow and refine it, with the help of this Emperor Calamity Pill, your strength will definitely be able to stabilize at the 1-star Do D class for a short period of time. A thought passed through Xiaoyan's mind. A thin layer of Do Qi covered the surface of the jade box, removing that strange pressure. After which, he handed it to Tianying and spoke in a gentle voice. The hearts of the 4 people in front of him involuntarily moved when these words were spoken. This was especially the case for Ah Bao. After hearing that this thing was actually for Tianying's group, his heart involuntarily felt a sense of disappointment. His eyes occasionally glanced at the jade bottle in Xiaoyan's other hand. There were only 4 medicinal pills within it. Currently, Xiaoyan's strength was merely that of a bandit. It was likely that he did not intend to prepare anything for him. Ah Bao's originally lowered head even further when he thought of this. Xiaoyan did not care if Tianying was willing to accept it. He still handed the monster core to him. After which, he opened the jade bottle. With a flick of his finger, the 4 Emperor Calamity Pills within the jade bottle flew out under the control of Xiaoyan's mind. They were suspended in front of Tianying's group and Ah Bao. The 3 Tianying brothers anxiously stored the medicinal pills, suspended in front of them, into their clothes. Ah Bao, on the other hand, did not see the medicinal pills suspended in front of him because he had lowered his head. Ah Bao. Xiaoyan softly called out. Ah Bao immediately appeared to have been electrocuted. He instantly straightened his body. Soon after, he saw the Emperor Calamity Pill suspended in front of him. Take this. Xiaoyan laughed softly. However, this caused Ah Bao to be stunned. He seemed to suspect that his ears had misheard. He could not help but ask Xiaoyan again. After receiving Xiaoyan's confirmation, he was wild with joy as he snatched the medicinal pills in front of him from the air. It was as if he was afraid that Xiaoyan would take them back. Xiaoyan smiled faintly when he saw this. He did not say anything else. After chatting with the 4 people in front of him for a while, they headed towards the narwhal snake's location under Tianying's lead. Along the way, Tianying was quite surprised that Xiaoyan actually knew about the narwhal snake's location. He did not expect that Xiaoyan had actually seen through Lung Bingshuang's plan. With regards to this, Xiaoyan casually brushed it off with a few vague words. Xiaoyan did not explicitly say that he already knew about the narwhal snake's location a year ago. This could be considered as leaving some leeway between them. A moment later, Xiaoyan and Tianying arrived deep underground. However, there was nothing in the scorching magma space. /54_M. Chapter 766. Inside the scorching hot underground magma space, Xiaoyan and Sky Eagle stood there. Other than the two of them, there was nothing else. Even Xiaoyan could not help but feel a little surprised when he saw the scene in front of him. He clearly remembered that the narwhal snake was within this realm a year ago. Why was it that there was not the slightest trace of it now? Shock was written all over Xiaoyan's face. Since Sky Eagle had brought him here, the narwhal snake must be here. However, why was there no sign of it? Just as Xiaoyan turned his head, he saw Sky Eagle's lips curling into a smile. Haha, brother Xiaoyan, looks like even you did not discover its whereabouts. Sky Eagle smiled and seemed to be rather satisfied with this. There was even a tinge of pride in his smile. Brother Sky Eagle, what is going on? Hee. Sky Eagle grinned when he saw Xiaoyan frowning. After which, he lifted his hands and the seals in his hands changed. After a few breaths, the magma in front of Xiaoyan and Sky Eagle suddenly became illusory and disappeared. At the same time, a huge creature appeared in front of the two of them. The creature that appeared in front of the two of them was an extremely huge snake. However, unlike ordinary snake-type magical beasts, it had a single horn that was shaped like lightning on its head. It was the narwhal snake. This is a formation? It is a formation. However, this is a natural formation. Xiaoyan frowned in confusion. Sky Eagle, who was beside him, smiled and explained. Oh, a formation can be formed naturally? Xiaoyan knew that all living things in the world, including beasts, flowers, and birds, were born from nature. However, Xiaoyan really did not expect that the world could create such a mysterious formation. Haha, brother Xiaoyan, there is something that you do not know. A formation is similar to Douqi. They are both energy from the universe. However, the method of using them is different. Overall, they are still connected. Those energies that exist in the universe can be used by humans, because humans are able to successfully arrange them. Hence, they can be controlled. The reason why a formation like this can exist is because it has been correctly arranged after countless changes in history. That is all. Xiaoyan finally understood in his heart when he heard this. This world was filled with various kinds of coincidences. At this moment, this mysterious formation that had appeared in front of her was just like the falling star pavilion on the Douqi continent. Did it not borrow a meteorite from outer space to create the star realm, resulting in the falling star pavilion? After understanding this point, Xiaoyan immediately nodded. After which, he withdrew his thoughts and looked at the narwhal snake. After a year, the energy stratum on the narwhal snake's body did not change much. However, Xiaoyan could faintly feel that the narwhal snake's aura was gradually rising. From the looks of it, its strength had likely exceeded that of a 4-star Dodi. Xiaoyan's heart rejoiced because of this. Even though the narwhal snake still needed quite a long time to refine the energy cuticle, its training path was at the very least much more stable than Xiaoyan's. This caused Xiaoyan's heart to feel a little unfair. Xiaoyan's heart was filled with joy. However, Xiaoyan immediately felt relieved. Everyone was like this. There was no such thing as fairness in this world. There were thousands of ways to obtain strength, but the goal was the same. Some people's path was destined to be smooth while some people's path was destined to be bumpy. However, as long as one wanted to become strong, one had to continue walking. No matter what the road ahead was, even if it was a mountain of knives or a sea of fire, as long as one wanted to become strong, one had to continue walking. Even if one's path was as flat as a grassland, it did not mean that there was no danger in the grassland. A seemingly flat grassland might be a bottomless swamp in the next step. Compared to these invisible dangers, looking at it from another angle, perhaps the mountain of knives and sea of fire in front of one's eyes would make one feel more at ease. The path of a strong person was full of hardships and difficulties. There were no shortcuts in training. If one wanted to become strong, the best way was to be down to earth and take one step at a time. After seeing the narwhal snake, Xiaoyan's next goal was to head straight for the hinterland of Shilin. That was the final destination of Xiaoyan's journey to the Shilin mountain range. After bidding farewell to Sky Eagle and the other three, Xiaoyan set off alone and flew towards the hinterland of Shilin. After a few hours, the sunlight between heaven and earth gradually dimmed. The originally lush land was gradually covered by ice and snow. The temperature between heaven and earth also gradually became cold. The cold wind whistled and the snow danced wildly. The entire world was filled with bitter cold. The snow spread to the ends of one's sight. Xiao Yan's figure was not affected by the cold wind at all. Gradually, the area behind him was also filled with a vast expanse of snow. In front of Xiao Yan's eyes, a slightly blurry mountain stood in front of him like a giant beast. At this point, Xiao Yan's forward footsteps could not help but pause. In his mind, a graceful figure involuntarily flashed out. It was Morong Qianxian. Sigh, I wonder how that girl is doing now. In short, she is better than me. Her fourth uncle's strength is extremely frightening. The clan behind him should not be weak either. Xiao Yan muttered a few words in his heart for no reason. Only then did he withdraw his thoughts. With a flip of his hand, a palm-sized jade tablet appeared in his hand. It was Qi Hanyu. This thing was given to him by Lung Bingshuang back then. He remembered that she had given him and Morong Qianxian one each. The purpose was to allow them to safely enter the hinterland of Shilin in the future. After taking out the Qi Hanyu, a thought passed through Xiao Yan's mind. A thread of dou qi followed his palm and poured into it. Immediately, an invisible energy barrier was released from the Qi Hanyu in his hand. It wrapped around the space within a dozen feet around Xiao Yan. The biting cold wind was isolated far away. Xiao Yan's body felt much more relaxed. Without any hesitation, Xiao Yan instantly used the sky extinction step. In the blink of an eye, his body had already crossed the tall mountain in front of him and swiftly flew towards the deep regions. Although the hinterland of Shilin was the hinterland, it was still quite large. With Xiao Yan's speed, he roughly searched for a direction in his heart. However, he still spent nearly 4 hours before he found the underground ice palace that Lung Bingshuang had stayed in back then. After finding the entrance, Xiao Yan successfully entered Lung Bingshuang's underground ice palace with the help of Qi Hanyu. Back then, his spiritual strength was still weak, and Xiao Yan did not clearly sense it. However, the moment Xiao Yan took his first step into the ice palace, he clearly sensed the location of the icy spirit cold fountain within the ice palace. Chapter 767. The interior of the ice palace was very spacious. Due to his injuries last time, Xiao Yan did not have the opportunity to explore it properly. However, this time, Xiao Yan's target was clear. He was going straight for the icy spirit frozen spring. After entering the ice palace, the first thing that entered his eyes was the courtyard buildings that looked like ordinary courtyards. The only difference was the materials used. All the buildings here were carved out of ice. Even though there was only one type, it still had a different kind of beauty. At this moment, Xiao Yan did not have the time to care about these. After entering the ice palace, Xiao Yan quickly headed in the direction of the icy spirit frozen spring. However, it was only at this moment that Xiao Yan suddenly realized that ever since he entered the ice palace, his spiritual energy was restricted by something. In other words, the current him could only rely on the general direction in his memory to find the icy spirit frozen spring. Right now, other than searching around the ice palace, there was no other way. This caused Xiao Yan to feel helpless. However, at the same time, Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily felt a little doubtful. Why was it that he did not see Lung Bingshuang's figure this time around? Logically speaking, she should have discovered that the bodhisattva returning pill had been refined. Why was it that she was still unwilling to show herself even now? With doubts in his heart, Xiao Yan continued to move forward. If he could find the icy spirit frozen spring, he would take it himself first. At the very most, when he met her again in the future, he would give the Bodhi returning pill to her. At this moment, Xiao Yan's mind was filled with thoughts of the icy spirit frozen liquid. How could he be in the mood to care about how frightening Lung Bingfeng's strength was? The size of the ice palace had clearly exceeded Xiao Yan's imagination. From the beginning until now, he had already walked around the ice palace for 2 hours. During this time, there were many times when he reached a dead end. Helplessly, he took a few more turns and suffered a few more setbacks. Although he could clearly feel that he was getting closer and closer to the icy spirit frozen spring, it was as if there was a wall between them. This caused Xiao Yan's heart to be filled with anxiety. Fortunately, the heavens did not disappoint those who persevered. After half a day of searching, the clear sound of flowing water finally reached Xiao Yan's ears. This was definitely the icy spirit cold fountain. Finally found it. Immediately, Xiaoyan felt a great joy in his heart. As he carefully listened to the direction of the water sound, his footsteps swiftly moved in that direction. However, at a certain moment, a soft painful moan was transmitted into Xiaoyan's ear. Judging from the voice, it was obviously a woman. Huh! Xiaoyan's body shuddered when he heard the moaning. He turned his gaze to look at the courtyard to his left. He could clearly hear the moaning coming from there. What's going on? How could there be someone here? Even if there was someone, it should only be a cold woman. But what's going on? From the voice, Xiaoyan could clearly hear an extremely painful emotion. It was unimaginable that the owner of the voice was enduring an unimaginable pain. On one side was the icy spirit frozen spring, and on the other was a woman moaning in pain. Even though Xiaoyan did not like to meddle in other people's business, this was after all Lung Bingshuang's territory. No matter who this person was, if something happened to the latter, Lung Bingshuang would not let him off so easily when she returned. After making a decision in his heart, Xiaoyan finally let out a deep sigh. He violently clenched his teeth, and his gaze once again looked at the direction where the sound of water was coming from. Somewhat unwillingly, he turned into the courtyard on the left. After entering the courtyard, Xiaoyan first asked a question. However, the moaning sound from the room in the courtyard was forcefully suppressed. Obviously, the sudden entry of an outsider like Xiaoyan had caused the owner of the courtyard to be extremely surprised. The sudden disappearance of the moaning sound also caused Xiaoyan to involuntarily frown. He did not think too much in his heart as he stepped forward and opened the door to the room in the courtyard. Immediately following this, a frightening Do-Chi pillar swiftly drew across Xiaoyan's face the moment the door was opened. If that person's body was not in pain at this moment, it was likely that Xiaoyan's head would have already been separated from his body. Being ambushed by this frightening Do-Chi pillar caused Xiaoyan's heart to be both shocked and furious. His body flashed and he immediately entered the room. Soon after, however, when Xiaoyan focused his eyes and looked over, the scene that appeared in front of him caused his body to instantly freeze on the spot. At this moment, on the ice bed in the room, a delicate and graceful figure was curled up on the ice bed while trembling intensely. Her entire body had turned icy blue, as if she was an ice sculpture. It was so much so that one could faintly see the traces of her bones through her skin. However, the thing that caused Xiaoyan to feel the most astonished was the stunning face of this beautiful figure. Looking at her face, she was the overlord of the Shilin mountain range, Lung Bingshuang. At this very moment, the dignified overlord of the Shilin mountain range appeared as weak as a dead person. It was likely that the attack she had used to attack Xiaoyan earlier was already her final move. From Xiaoyan's position, he could clearly see that at this moment, there were tears continuously dripping from the corners of this exceptional beauty's eyes. Unfortunately, the moment the tears fell, they had already turned into ice shards and landed on the ice bed. Seeing this scene, Xiaoyan could not help but be slightly startled. He was even a little surprised in his heart. What exactly had happened? Ugh! Immediately, when Lung Bingshuang could not help but let out a low moan from her nose, Xiaoyan hurriedly regained his senses. He hurriedly took a few steps forward and arrived in front of Lung Bingshuang. Under the latter's helpless and struggling gaze, he carried Lung Bingshuang's ice-cold body up. After which, he hurriedly took out his own clothes from his storage ring and spread them all over the ice bed. Only then did he put Lung Bingshuang's delicate body down. With a flick of his finger, a beautiful flame swiftly shot out. The temperature of the entire room immediately rose by a lot. After doing all this, Xiaoyan ignored the latter's struggling gaze and grabbed Lung Bingshuang's ice-cold wrist. With a thought, the heavenly flame in his body flowed through his meridians and entered Lung Bingshuang's body from his palm. It was also at this moment that an even colder energy in Lung Bingshuang's body, like a ferocious beast, instantly swallowed the heavenly flame that Xiaoyan had just merged into her body. Ugh! This sudden turn of events caused Xiaoyan to involuntarily let out a muffled groan. However, Xiaoyan once again grabbed Lung Bingshuang's wrist and fiercely clenched his teeth. An even more ferocious heavenly flame flowed into Lung Bingshuang's body under Xiaoyan's control. Chapter 768. In the Ice Palace in the hinterland of Shilin, Xiaoyan's hand, which had turned red from the cold, was still holding Lung Bingshuang's cold wrist tightly. He did not care about Lung Bingshuang's struggle. The heavenly fire in his body surged into Lung Bingshuang's body again and again, but it was swallowed by the strange ice. Damn it! What is going on? After a couple of fruitless attempts, Xiao Yan's heart involuntarily became somewhat anxious. Although his relationship with Lung Bingshuang could not be considered good, the latter had once saved his life. Even though the two of them had their own motives, that was that. Xiao Yan must help Lung Bingshuang resolve the matter today no matter what. Elder Gu, take a look. What is going on? Xiao Yan had no choice but to place all his hopes on Guyu. Hey you brat. You are pushing this matter on me again. Guyu laughed and scolded him. After that, he separated a wisp of his spiritual energy and injected it into Lung Bingshuang's body through Xiao Yan's arm. It was as the saying went. In the face of absolute power, any resistance was useless. Just like now, when Guyu's wisp of spiritual energy was injected into Lung Bingshuang's body, the originally menacing cold air receded rapidly like a tide. It was no longer as domineering as it had been when it had faced Xiao Yan's heavenly fire. Guyu's spiritual energy circled Lung Bingshuang's body once before it was withdrawn. However, what Guyu said next made Xiao Yan's face turn gloomy. This little girl's current situation is not very optimistic. Guyu's voice sounded a little heavy. From this point alone, Xiao Yan could feel the seriousness of the situation. For Guyu to say such pessimistic words, how could it be so easy to solve this problem? Elder Gu, what is going on with her? Xiao Yan's brows were tightly knit together. Regardless of whether it was based on emotion or reason, he could not sit back and do nothing about this matter. Do you still remember why this girl wants the Bodhi pill back? Xiao Yan was slightly stunned. Then, as if he had thought of something, he raised his eyebrows and said in surprise, Is it the cold poison in her body? That's right. I'm afraid that this girl has been injured for quite some time. She's been delaying it for a long time. In addition, this is an extremely cold place to begin with. The cold poison flared up again and again, getting more and more serious each time. Now she can't withstand the power of the cold poison, and can only let it spread. Guyu's tone was grave as he explained to Xiao Yan. The latter's expression involuntarily changed upon hearing this. It was unexpected that the cold poison within Lung Bingshuang's body was even more frightening than he had expected. Normally, when Lung Bingshuang appeared in front of others, she always had a strong and domineering aura, causing others to be intimidated by her. But who knew what kind of intense and unbearable pain she was enduring under her strong appearance? In order to protect the Shilin mountain range, Lung Bingshuang had already endured a lot alone. Thinking of this, Xiao Yan did not dare to hesitate any longer. With a flip of his palm, he quickly took out the Bodhi returning pill and fed it to Lung Bingshuang. Wait! At this moment, Guyu suddenly spoke to stop Xiao Yan. The cold poison within this girl's body has already accumulated to an unimaginable level. It is likely that it will be very difficult to completely eradicate it with just the Bodhi returning pill. It will not be of much use if you feed it to her now. What should I do? Xiao Yan hurriedly withdrew his extended hand after hearing Guyu's words. He frowned and hurriedly asked Guyu in his heart. The best method now is to use the heavenly flame to nourish her body. Once the cold poison has been suppressed a little, use the Bodhi returning pill to completely eradicate the hidden danger. Guyu's words had just sounded when Xiao Yan suddenly felt his head swell. A wave of information surged into Xiao Yan's mind. The method that Guyu had given him was to inject the heavenly flame into the few spots on Lung Bingshuang's body, where the cold poison was the weakest. This would remove the cold poison within her body in the shortest amount of time. However, after Xiao Yan carefully organized the information in his mind, his old face involuntarily became boiling hot. Other than the head, there was also the neck, the heart, and the lower abdomen where the vortex was located. These few spots were crucial to the human body, and were also the places where one's energy was the most abundant. Logically speaking, there was nothing wrong with the information that Guyu had given him. However, its location caused Xiao Yan to feel a little embarrassed. These few spots were undoubtedly the most sensitive parts of a woman's body. Once he touched them, Xiao Yan did not dare to imagine whether this woman would tear him apart in a fit of anger after she recovered. Gulp gulp. Even with Xiao Yan's mental fortitude, He involuntarily felt a chill run down his spine when he thought of this. His throat rolled slightly as he swallowed a mouthful of saliva. Old Gu, you are not purposely trying to trick me, are you? The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth twitched a little as he awkwardly smiled and asked in his heart. Heh, with your level, you should be able to see it. Other than the few places that I have given you, what other methods do you think can save her? You have also seen it earlier. With the might of the cold poison, it is impossible for your heavenly flame to enter her body. If you were to forcefully enter her body, it would instead harm her body. Since you do not wish to harm her, and yet you wish to save her, the method that I have given you is already the safest. If you are unwilling, then there is nothing that I can do. Guyu laughed, but the words that he said left Xiao Yan unable to refute. Guyu was right. The few spots that he had pointed out were indeed the weakest parts of Lung Bingshuang's body. Other than this, there was no other method for Xiao Yan to inject the heavenly flame into her body. Ugh, don't blame me. Xiao Yan helplessly laughed bitterly in his heart. Only then did he raise his eyes to look at the woman in front of him. At a glance, Lung Bingshuang was already close to fainting. During this short period of time, the cold poison in her body had become even more intense. Perhaps this was because she had sensed the threatening aura of Xiao Yan in the outside world. Gulp gulp. Xiao Yan's throat rolled as he slowly raised his trembling hand. He slowly moved it to Lung Bingshuang's lower abdomen. Just as Xiao Yan was about to place his hand on it, Lung Bingshuang, who was about to faint, suddenly opened her eyes. A pair of icy cold eyes stared at Xiao Yan in a manner that seemed to want to devour him. Her cold killing intent was not hidden at all. The expression on her pale face was extremely cold. She could not help but pause for a moment. A painful groan was emitted from her nose. After which, she spoke in a cold and solemn voice. What are you trying to do? The sudden appearance of this scene also caused Xiao Yan, who had just extended his hand, to withdraw it with a swoosh. His entire body abruptly shook at this moment, and he could not help but take 2 steps back. The sudden action of the woman in front of him, which appeared to be the final radiance of the setting sun, nearly scared Xiao Yan out of his wits. His breath trembled as he inhaled a deep breath. Only then did Xiao Yan softly say, "The cold poison in your body is becoming more and more serious. Don't move. Let me help you expel the poison. Get lost. This king does not need you." Lung Bingshuang cried out furiously the moment Xiao Yan's words sounded. However, before she could finish speaking, the world in front of her turned black, and she immediately fainted. Chapter 769. Lung Bingshuang's delicate body was lying flat on the ice bed. Her beautiful eyes were tightly shut, and she was not breathing. At a glance, the surface of Lung Bingshuang's body was actually covered with a thin layer of ice. Her entire body looked like a beautiful work of art. If it was not because Xiao Yan was already familiar with her, it was likely that anyone would have thought that she was really an ice sculpture. The thin layer of ice covered Lung Bingshuang's entire delicate body. Even the body under the layer of ice was actually suffused with an icy blue color. One could even faintly see the flesh and bones under it. Unfortunately, everything was already covered by the layer of ice. The current Lung Bingshuang could be said to have completely turned into a piece of ice from the inside out. It was as if it would shatter with a knock, causing one to not dare to carelessly touch it. However, it was also at this moment that within Lung Bingshuang's body, from her lower abdomen to the area above her chest, a small fiery red glow actually appeared within her body. That glow flickered faintly and erratically. It was as if a cluster of burning flames was really there. It looked extremely mysterious. This was the heavenly flame that Xiao Yan had injected into Lung Bingshuang's body. Lung Bingshuang had fainted, but Xiao Yan was still trembling with fear. He did not dare to be the slightest bit careless. At the same time that he tried his best to inject the heavenly flame into Lung Bingshuang's body, cold sweat that was as dense as raindrops continuously fell from his forehead. Every action that Xiao Yan made was extremely careful. He was afraid that he would once again wake this woman up. At that time, if he were to be misunderstood by her, it would really be a matter of life and death. Due to the fact that the invasion of the cold poison in these few areas was weaker, Xiao Yan's heavenly flame easily poured into them. However, due to the anxiety in Xiao Yan's heart, This process continued for a total of 4 hours. The result that he obtained was even more unsatisfactory. Fortunately, under Xiao Yan's continuous perseverance, Lung Bingshuang's body was finally gradually occupied by the heavenly flame. The areas that were currently flickering with red light in Lung Bingshuang's body were occupied by Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. At the same time, these areas were also the weakest parts of the cold poison. However, even so, Xiao Yan had still expended quite a lot of effort to send his heavenly flame into Lung Bingshuang's body. He turned his head back and looked at Lung Bingshuang. At this time in Lung Bingshuang's body, the 3 energies each occupied one side, forming a tripod, not giving way to each other. Without a doubt, the most powerful of the 3 was the cold poison. After a long period of accumulation, the cold poison had become extremely powerful and terrifying. Even an origin transformation expert like Lung Bingshuang had fallen before it, so it was easy to imagine just how terrifying the cold poison was. As for the second power, it was naturally Lung Bingshuang's own Genesis Qi. As an origin transformation expert, the Do Qi in her body was gradually transforming into Genesis Qi. When Lung Bingshuang truly became a returnance expert, all the Do Qi in her body would transform into Genesis Qi. This was the rule of the Yuanwu continent, a path that every returnance expert had to take. Unfortunately, even though Lung Bingshuang had already reached the origin transformation realm, she had still fallen to the cold poison in the end. As for the third energy, it was naturally Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was undoubtedly the weakest of the 3. Even Genesis Qi could not withstand the cold poison, while Xiao Yan's heavenly flame was no match for the tremendous amount of Genesis Qi. Naturally, the existence of the heavenly flame was the weakest of the 3. Of course, the fact that the heavenly flame was able to compete with the other 2 naturally meant that it had its own advantages. In terms of position, Xiao Yan's heavenly flame occupied a few of the most important organs in Lung Bingshuang's body. It could be said that pulling one part would affect the entire body. As long as Xiao Yan was able to properly protect these organs in Lung Bingshuang's body, the cold poison would not be able to threaten Lung Bingshuang's life regardless of how strong it was. In addition, the existence of the heavenly flame was an even greater threat to the cold poison. The heavenly flame was a divine object of extreme yang between heaven and earth. Even a living person would fear the power of the heavenly flame, let alone this kind of insidious poison that resided in the human body. Heavenly flames could be said to be the natural nemesis of the cold poison. Following the formation of the 3-legged force, Xiao Yan in the outside world could not remain idle. Although the heavenly flame had already been poured into Lung Bingshuang's body, the cold poison's strength was too strong. Just by relying on his spiritual strength, Xiao Yan was unable to push through the cold poison to spread the heavenly flame. Hence, the only thing Xiao Yan could do now was to personally act. He used Lung Bingshuang's skin to control the spreading of the heavenly flame. During this process, Xiao Yan had to personally reach every spot where the heavenly flame spread. Wherever Xiao Yan's hand went, the heavenly flame would spread. The cold poison had already invaded Lung Bingshuang's limbs and bones. As for the Genesis Qi in her body, no matter how powerful it was, it could only protect her essence from being harmed. Initially, when Xiao Yan had just discovered this point, the expression on his old face was also extremely embarrassed. Putting it this way, did it not mean that if he wanted to help Lung Bingshuang expel all the cold poison within her body, he would need to let his hand pass over every inch of her skin? The thought of this made Xiao Yan's old face turn red. Besides this, there was also a deep sense of worry. Who knew if this woman would try to kill him after she woke up? After all, Lung Bingshuang had personally seen Xiao Yan's hand reach towards her lower abdomen before she fainted. For someone who was about to faint, especially a woman, it was difficult not to think about such a scene. While Xiao Yan was hesitating in his heart, the cold poison in Lung Bingshuang's body did not wait any longer. It was unwilling to be outdone by the heavenly flame that had suddenly interfered. The deep blue cold poison was like a thick fog in Lung Bingshuang's body as it spread in all directions. Wherever it passed, her meridians, blood, bones and internal organs were swiftly covered in a layer of ice. However, every time the fog neared the heavenly flame, it would swiftly melt away, emitting a faint sizzling sound in Lung Bingshuang's body before disappearing. However, even though the heavenly flame was the natural nemesis of the cold poison, as time passed, the cold poison that was continuously approaching the heavenly flame was also taking a step closer to Xiao Yan's heavenly flame. Under closer inspection, the internal organs that had originally recovered under the protection of Xiao Yan's heavenly flame were now showing signs of being covered in ice. The appearance of this scene caused Xiao Yan's heart to tighten. He knew that no matter what, he could no longer hesitate. Chapter 770. Inside the ice room, which was completely made of ice, a few fist-sized balls of brilliant flames were emitting a blazing heat in mid-air. Therefore, the temperature in this ice room, which seemed to be surrounded by ice on all sides, was not as low as one would imagine. Instead, there was a sense of warmth. Inside the ice room, there was an ice bed, which was covered with a man's clothes. An ice-cold beauty was lying on the bed with her beautiful eyes tightly shut, just like an ice sculpture, not moving at all. Xiao Yan removed a layer of the woman's long dress, revealing the smooth jade-like skin underneath. At this moment, Lung Bingshuang's entire body, only her chest and lower body were still covered by the long dress. A large portion of her body was exposed to the warm air, undoubtedly in front of Xiao Yan's eyes. Initially, Xiao Yan did not want to do this. However, in order to be able to clearly control the temperature and direction of the heavenly flame, so as to prevent Lung Bingshuang from getting hurt, he had no choice but to do this. Even though he was extremely nervous, saving a life was more important. Xiao Yan did not have the time to care about so many rules. At this moment, Xiao Yan was carefully extending 2 fingers, gently pressing on the delicate body of this peerless beauty in front of him, creating a small depression, allowing one to clearly feel the ice-cold yet smooth skin. Xiao Yan held his breath, not daring to be careless. His entire mind was in a highly tense state. His 2 fingers slowly moved on the woman's lower abdomen. There was not a trace of excess flesh on the smooth lower abdomen, the soft skin causing Xiao Yan's heart to involuntarily tremble. However, he still forcefully steadied his mind, doing his best to control the heavenly flame in Lung Bingshuang's body, gradually approaching the area occupied by the cold poison. The spreading of the heavenly flame was especially difficult. Xiao Yan had to ensure that Lung Bingshuang's body was not harmed while expelling the cold poison. This in itself was an extremely difficult test. Moreover, the cold poison was not weak. The expulsion of the heavenly flame also caused the cold poison to begin to retaliate. Hence, Xiao Yan's actions might appear gentle, but he would pause for a long time each time his finger landed. His goal was to control the heavenly flame, to expel the cold poison from the spots where his finger was pressed before continuing to move forward. This caused Xiao Yan's finger to move even more slowly. On this smooth skin, Xiao Yan's finger often needed 15 minutes to be able to move a short distance of an inch. One could imagine how difficult it was to do so. As time passed, Xiao Yan's fingertips gradually moved from Lung Bingshuang's smooth lower abdomen to her chest. First her heart, then her lungs. Even with the isolation of a layer of robes, the unique softness that only existed on a woman's body caused Xiao Yan to involuntarily suck in a breath of cold air. The depths of his heart violently trembled. Xiao Yan's finger, which was pressed on Lung Bingshuang's delicate body, could not help but tremble slightly. Instantly, an even clearer and softer feeling rapidly stimulated Xiao Yan's body like a burst of electricity. His mind trembled, and the heavenly flame in Lung Bingshuang's body almost lost control. Suddenly quivering, Xiao Yan's teeth fiercely bit the tip of his tongue. Instantly, a small piece of flesh on the tip of his tongue was bitten to pieces. An unbearable intense pain immediately spread throughout his body and reached the depths of his soul. In an instant, Xiao Yan completely regained his senses. Forcefully enduring the intense pain, Xiao Yan's other thoughts were completely withdrawn. He did not dare to be careless as he focused all his attention and hurriedly controlled the heavenly flame in Lung Bingshuang's body. A huge amount of spiritual force gushed out from Xiao Yan's fingertips, then passed through Lung Bingshuang's skin and entered her body. It quickly poured into the heavenly flame, causing it to calm down once again. After doing all this, Xiao Yan fiercely swallowed a mouthful of saliva. The sweet blood rolled down his throat, and with Xiao Yan's breathing, it once again surged up. It gradually spread out in his mouth and did not dissipate for a long time. Xiao Yan endured the intense pain, controlled his 2 fingers, and continued to walk on Lung Bingshuang's delicate body. After a full 2 hours, Xiao Yan's fingers finally moved away from Lung Bingshuang's proud chest. Then it was the latter's snow-white neck. Huff huff. Only at this moment did Xiao Yan involuntarily pant a few times. The tense emotions in his heart finally relaxed. However, immediately after, Xiao Yan once again focused his attention. The process of expelling the cold poison had already been close to a day, but Xiao Yan was mentally exhausted. However, there was still quite a lot of cold poison in Lung Bingshuang's body. Until now, Lung Bingshuang's 4 limbs were still filled with the ice-blue cold poison. Her 2 arms were like ice crystals, and one could clearly see the bones under Lung Bingshuang's flesh through her skin. The places that Xiao Yan's heavenly flame had passed through were only Lung Bingshuang's upper body. Time flowed by. Xiao Yan's fingers gradually moved up Lung Bingshuang's neck. After a long time, after maintaining a conscious state for a few hours, Xiao Yan's emotions once again began to fluctuate. Unknowingly, one of the 2 fingers that were originally on Lung Bingshuang's neck actually fell down. As he controlled the heavenly flame, he also felt the latter's soft and smooth skin. The bottom of his heart was slightly agitated. Immediately after, 4 fingers, 5 fingers. Finally, his entire palm gently landed on Lung Bingshuang's upper body, and unconsciously began to wander. However, until a certain moment, Lung Bingshuang, who was originally quietly lying down, seemed to have felt the gentle caress from her body. Her nose involuntarily emitted a soft moan. Swoosh! In an instant, Xiao Yan regained his senses. His chest felt as if it had been hit by a hammer. His entire body violently leaned forward, and the breath that was held in his chest was completely spat out. His face instantly became incomparably red. Only after a long while did Xiao Yan gradually regain his senses. The instant he lifted his head, he clearly saw that his palm was actually pressing on the chest of this ice beauty in front of him. Ugh! After a brief stupefaction, Xiao Yan's Adam's apple bobbed slightly as his face instantly turned as red as if it had been set on fire. Xiao Yan hurriedly withdrew his hand. Although it was unintentional, the soft warmth that had spread from his palm caused his heartbeat to abruptly quicken. At the same time, an extremely ominous premonition swiftly surged from the bottom of his heart. As the frost poison was gradually expelled, the Genesis Qi in Lung Bingshuang's body gradually gained the upper hand. The balance of power was gradually tilting. Lung Bingshuang slowly woke up, as if she had just woken up from a long dream. Her consciousness, however, was still stuck at the moment before she had entered the dream. Gradually, at a certain moment, this sleeping beauty, who had been in a deep slumber for a long time, slowly woke up. The moment her pair of pretty eyes opened, she saw Xiao Yan in front of her, whose face was completely red. Chapter 771. Within the ice room, 2 figures, one black and one white, were standing opposite each other. The person wearing the black robe was a man. His face was crimson red and his lips were strangely pale. His aura was weak and his mouth was constantly panting heavily. Opposite him, the one whose delicate body was wrapped in a long dress was a beauty that could topple the world. Her pretty face was ice-cold as she stared at the black-robed man with killing intent. Lung Bingshuang's fair jade-like hand suddenly clenched in mid-air. In an instant, an ice-blue long sword that was 3 fingers wide appeared in her hand. The tip of the sword pointed directly at the spot between Xiao Yan's eyebrows. Xiao Yan, what have you done to me? When she recalled her disheveled appearance when she woke up, Lung Bingshuang's heart could not help but be filled with shame and anger. The expression on her pretty face alternated between green and white. The hand that was holding the long sword could not help but tremble slightly. At the same time, the killing intent in her heart crazily surged. When he heard Lung Bingshuang's words, the pale-faced Xiao Yan could not help but be startled. He glanced at his right hand, which had unknowingly turned ice blue, and quickly kept it in his sleeve. After which, he looked at Lung Bingshuang opposite him, and swallowed a mouthful of saliva with difficulty. The blood in his mouth that had yet to dissipate caused Xiao Yan's head to feel dizzy. If I said that I did this to help you expel the cold poison, would you believe me? Xiao Yan gently shook his head, trying his best to dispel the dizziness in his mind. It was a long while later before he weakly said, "You still dare to quibble after doing something, you're courting death." When he heard Xiao Yan's words, the killing intent in Lung Bingshuang's heart became even thicker. When he was awake, he faintly realized some of the things that had happened previously. The so-called healing, could it be that one could heal one's hand on someone else's chest? Immediately, Lung Bingshuang's wrist jerked and the long sword in her hand danced. The sword viciously pierced toward Xiao Yan's chest. In the blink of an eye, the long sword was about to pierce into Xiao Yan's chest. It was also at this moment that the giddy Xiao Yan suddenly felt everything in front of him turn black. His entire body immediately fell backward, and coincidentally dodged the sword that was thrusting toward him. However, even so, the sharp edge of the sword still easily tore through the black robe on Xiao Yan's chest, leaving behind a deep wound on Xiao Yan's chest. Dark red blood immediately gushed out, but before it could land, it had already been instantly frozen in this ice cave-like room. In the next moment, with a muffled bang, Xiao Yan's body heavily fell onto the ground of the ice room. Fresh blood continuously gushed out and froze on the wound on Xiao Yan's chest. At the same time that the wound was sealed, the icy cold air also continuously poured into Xiao Yan's body. Seeing this scene, Lung Bingshuang originally wanted to ignore him and leave him to die under the cold air. However, just as she was about to pass by Xiao Yan, the left hand under Xiao Yan's sleeve unconsciously opened. Immediately after, a jade bottle rolled out and appeared in Lung Bingshuang's line of sight. As the jade bottle slid out, a rich pill fragrance immediately spread out. Even though it was separated by the jade bottle, Lung Bingshuang could still feel the blazing energy aura within the pill. This is Lung Bingshuang's beautiful eyes narrowed. She couldn't help but feel bewildered. With a wave of her hand, the jade bottle on the ground rose up and was received by Lung Bingshuang. With a forceful shake, the jade bottle immediately turned into powder. After that, a scarlet pill gradually appeared in front of Lung Bingshuang's eyes. An even richer pill fragrance pounced on Lung Bingshuang's face. Lung Bingshuang merely inhaled a breath before she immediately felt the still rampant cold poison in her body swiftly shrink back. "This is the Bodhi returning pill." Lung Bingshuang cried out in surprise in her heart. She immediately swept her gaze toward Xiao Yan, who had already fainted at her feet. A trace of astonishment flashed across her beautiful eyes. She didn't expect that Xiao Yan had actually successfully refined the Bodhi returning pill. Moreover, looking at the color of this pill, its quality was definitely not bad. "This fellow is really a terrifying person. Even so, you still have to pay the price for what you did to this prince." Lung Bingshuang couldn't help but exclaim in surprise. Immediately after, the expression on her beautiful face instantly turned ice cold. With a twist of her wrist, the long sword in her hand immediately pointed downwards and pierced toward Xiao Yan's chest. However, in the next instant, Lung Bingshuang's hand movement once again stopped. Her beautiful eyes stared at Xiao Yan's deathly pale face, then glanced at the long sword wound on his chest. The Bodhi returning pill that was held in her other jade-like hand was returned to her storage ring. Lung Bingshuang's beautiful eyes were tightly shut. Her shapely eyebrows were almost knitted together. She was constantly struggling in her heart. Should she stab down with this sword or not? After struggling for a while, the long sword in her jade-like hand fiercely fell. Just as it was about to pierce Xiao Yan's chest, it exploded with a bang and turned into a ray of light, which was kept into Lung Bingshuang's storage ring. "Humph. You can take this pill as a form of repayment for what happened just now. As for the icy spirit frost liquid, don't even think about getting it." With a cold rebuke, Lung Bingshuang waved her sleeve. An invisible force swept up Xiao Yan's body and heavily smashed him onto the ice bed. Although her actions seemed fierce in reality, with Xiao Yan's physical strength, how could this kind of impact hurt him? Lung Bingshuang's actions were only to vent her anger. After doing all this, Lung Bingshuang couldn't be bothered with Xiao Yan anymore. She didn't care if he was dead or alive. She walked out. Now that she had obtained the Bodhi returning pill, she had to make some preparations to swallow it. In the blink of an eye, only the unconscious Xiao Yan was left in the ice room. This scene was somewhat similar to when Xiao Yan had first stepped into this place. However, the roles had been switched. At this moment, Xiao Yan's right hand under his sleeve was icy blue. Within his palm, An extremely cold qi was following Xiaoyan's qi paths and gradually spreading towards his arm. This qi was the cold poison that originally existed in Lung Bingshuang's body. After expelling the cold poison for Lung Bingshuang for a long time, a portion of the cold poison in Lung Bingshuang's body had unknowingly flowed into Xiaoyan's body. Although the heavenly flame in Xiaoyan's body tried to resist, Xiaoyan was already exhausted from expelling the cold poison for Lung Bingshuang. Not only had he used up more than half of his spiritual strength, but even the dou qi in his body was almost depleted. At this moment, the cold poison was surging and Xiaoyan had fainted. He was completely powerless to resist. Ugh, this stinking brat. He tried to steal a chicken only to end up losing the rice used to lure it. I was thinking of throwing out the Bodhi returning pill and wishing you a good marriage. Who could have imagined that it would end up like this? Deep within Xiaoyan's soul, Guyu let out a disappointed sigh. He sensed the cold poison that was gradually spreading within Xiaoyan's arm. He was just about to intervene when he seemed to have discovered something and paused. Chapter 772. Inside the empty ice room, a pale-faced Xiaoyan was lying flat on the ice bed. At this moment, Xiaoyan's entire right arm had turned into an icy blue color. The surface of his arm seemed to be covered with a layer of ice armor. Through this layer of ice armor, one could see pieces of crystal-like scales. That was Xiaoyan's Dragon Phoenix ancient armor. When the cold poison invaded Xiaoyan's body and sealed the interior of his arm with ice, it also activated Xiaoyan's Dragon Phoenix ancient armor. While Xiaoyan was unaware, it protected his body from harm. As time passed, the cold poison that had invaded Xiaoyan's body had almost filled Xiaoyan's entire right arm. However, that was all it could do. The cold poison that had entered Xiaoyan's body was only a small part of the cold poison in Lung Bingshuang's body. Being able to seal Xiaoyan's arm in ice was enough to prove how powerful the cold poison was. However, when the cold poison stopped, the heavenly flame that had been suppressed in Xiaoyan's body gradually recovered. The heavenly flame never stopped attacking the cold poison that had invaded Xiaoyan's right arm. However, the two of them were evenly matched. Within a short period of time, the cold poison was unable to cause any substantial harm to Xiaoyan's body. However, the heavenly flame was also unable to do anything to Xiaoyan. Finally, the cold poison was completely incinerated by the heavenly flame. After a long period of exhaustion, Xiaoyan's aura gradually recovered while he was in a deep slumber. However, this did not happen to the cold poison. As the cold poison was being refined by the heavenly flame, the threads of pure energy contained within the cold poison were swept by the heavenly flame and returned to Xiaoyan's vortex. The moment the extremely pure energy entered Xiaoyan's vortex space, it was swiftly broken apart. Compared to this thread of pure energy, Xiaoyan's dou qi was extremely weak. The moment the latter entered Xiaoyan's vortex space, it was immediately torn apart by the dou qi and replenished each other. In the blink of an eye, the dou qi that had been exhausted in the vortex space within Xiaoyan's body was actually completely recovered. This was not the end. With the replenishment of the energy, Xiaoyan's vortex space gradually swelled. The dou qi that was stored within even surpassed that of Xiaoyan at his peak condition. When the icy blue color that was wrapped around Xiaoyan's right arm completely disappeared, Xiaoyan's body involuntarily trembled slightly. His originally pale face had completely recovered. Swoosh! Quickly following this, Xiaoyan's tightly shut eyes suddenly opened. A glint instantly flashed deep within his dark black eyes. His skinny body shook slightly and a huge force immediately surged out. At the same time that the ice bed under him shattered, Xiaoyan's body also leaped up from it. After which he steadily stood on the ground. At the same time this scene appeared, Lung Bingshuang, whose pretty eyes were originally tightly shut, slowly opened them at this moment in front of a small pool in another part of the ice palace. Her pretty eyes inadvertently glanced in the direction where Xiaoyan was located. A glint flickered in her pretty eyes before she once again shut them. Xiaoyan involuntarily raised his eyebrows as he sensed the abundant dou qi within his body. He wondered just how long he had been unconscious. The dou qi within his body had already recovered the moment he woke up. Old Gu, how long have I been unconscious this time around? Xiaoyan frowned and asked Guyu in his heart. Hehe, I am not afraid of scaring you. 6 hours. Guyu laughed. The words that he uttered caused Xiao Yan to be momentarily stunned. 6 hours. Could it be that there was a problem with his ears after sleeping for a while? He clearly remembered that he had helped Lung Bingshuang heal her injuries before he had fainted. Xiao Yan's old face immediately became boiling hot when this thought suddenly appeared in his mind. He recalled the special feeling that had been transmitted from his hand back then, and involuntarily lifted his hand to rub his nose. He sniffed gently. There seemed to be a certain fragrance remaining on his hand. Soon after, Xiao Yan discovered that the hand he had lifted was his right hand, which was roaming over Lung Bingshuang's lovely body back then. Old Gu. What is going on? Xiao Yan's face was red as he tried his best to withdraw his thoughts. Only then did he ask Guyu. Hee, smelly brat. Originally I thought that you would not gain anything this time around. However, it seems that you have gained something. Guyu mischievously laughed as though he had seen through Xiao Yan's thoughts. He quickly explained to Xiao Yan what had happened in his body earlier. Xiao Yan came to a sudden understanding. He did not expect the cold poison to be so ferocious. Even though Xiao Yan was protected by a heavenly flame, it was still able to invade his body. Fortunately, Xiao Yan ultimately benefited from this disaster. The cold poison had accumulated in Lung Bingshuang's body over a long period of time, and contained a lot of Lung Bingshuang's energy. After the energy was refined by Xiao Yan's heavenly flame, the pure energy returned to Xiao Yan. Of course, most of the Genesis Qi had scattered. Only a portion of Do Qi could be used by Xiao Yan. As a result, Xiao Yan's advanced 6-star half-emperor cultivation had completely stabilized in a few short hours. Unlike other cultivation levels, the origin transformation realm was the most special. At this level, both Do Qi and Genesis Qi existed in a cultivator's body. The two types of energy coexisted in the world, and did not conflict with each other. However, to become a returnance expert, one needed to first convert all the Do Qi in one's body into Genesis Qi. During this period of time, the Genesis Qi and Do Qi would coexist and gradually transform. Once the Do Qi was completely converted into Genesis Qi, one would become a returnance expert. As a result, Xiao Yan was able to obtain pure Do Qi after his heavenly flame refined the energy from the cold poison. Don't celebrate too early. Although your strength has been stabilized, the Bodhi returning pill has already landed in that girl's hands. Oh! Xiao Yan's eyes immediately narrowed when he heard Guyu's words. Only then did he remember the main objective of this trip. That's right, the Bodhi returning pill, and the icy spirit liquid. Don't even think about it. Do you think that girl won't kill you after you touched her body? It's all because of the Bodhi returning pill. She urgently needs the Bodhi returning pill to recover from her injuries, which is why she let you go. If it weren't for the cold poison in her body, she would have died long ago. Guyu gloated before Xiao Yan could finish his sentence. His words were like a bucket of cold water that had been poured over Xiao Yan's head. That girl has already taken the Bodhi returning pill. There's no hope for the icy spirit liquid anymore. Chapter 773. Xiao Yan stood stiffly in the ice room that was filled with cold air. His eyebrows were tightly knitted together, and his heart was filled with many thoughts. What that woman said. Don't tell me she is really not going to give it to me. Xiao Yan's heart sank. The icy spirit frozen liquid was related to the ice spiritual pill. It was extremely important to him. No matter what, he could not afford to make any mistakes in this matter. Now that he had gathered all the medicinal ingredients he needed to refine the ice spiritual pill, he was only lacking the icy spirit frozen liquid. If anything went wrong, Xiao Yan would not be able to reverse the situation no matter how many tricks he had up his sleeves. Then, with her strength, how much of what she said would be false? Gulp! Xiao Yan's expression changed slightly. He seemed to have an answer in his heart. Don't tell me I have to go back like this, Xiao Yan said unwillingly. He had not expected that the situation would turn out like this. He had really suffered a double loss. Now, not only did he not give Lung Bingshuang any benefits, he had even lost the icy spirit frozen liquid. Without the icy spirit frozen liquid, how could he refine the ice spiritual pill? Without the ice spiritual pill, how could he swallow the heavenly flame? It was unbearable. Perhaps you can try here. Your current position is extremely close to the icy spirit frozen fountain. Perhaps you can refine some icy spirit frozen liquid from the air here. Xiaoyan helplessly sighed after Guyu uttered these words. Although he was unwilling in his heart, this was the only solution at this moment. Ugh, looks like this is the only way. Soon after, Xiaoyan was about to sit down. However, at this moment Lung Bingshuang, who was sitting beside a pool in a certain part of the ice palace, had a drastic change in her expression. At the same time, on Xiaoyan's side, despite being isolated by the ice wall, Xiaoyan could faintly feel that the ice room he was in was trembling slightly. This is... what happened? It's the icy spirit frozen fountain. Let's go over quickly. Xiaoyan was unable to clearly sense it, but this did not mean that Guyu was unaware. With his enormous spiritual strength, this ice palace could not stop him. Xiaoyan's expression involuntarily changed when he heard Guyu's words. An ominous premonition immediately rose in his heart. Xiaoyan followed Guyu's guidance and hurriedly rushed in the direction of the icy spirit frozen fountain. At the edge of the pond that was about 500 feet in size, Lung Bingshuang's pretty face had an incomparably solemn expression. The aura that had yet to recover to its peak gushed out without reservation at this moment. Her pair of beautiful eyes stared fixedly at the pool in front of her, as if she was waiting for something. On the other side, Xiaoyan was getting closer and closer to the fountain under Guyu's guidance. However, in the blink of an eye, 15 minutes had already passed. After Xiaoyan had repeatedly passed through tens of alleys, the sight in front of him suddenly became clear. The buildings in front of him had all disappeared. Instead, there was a pool. At this very moment, there was a beautiful lady, whose lovely body was wrapped under a long white dress, standing in midair beside the pool. A vast and mighty force and pressure surged out from her without any reservation. An incomparably solemn expression appeared on her beautiful, pretty face. Ugh! Xiaoyan's heart sank when he saw Lung Bingshuang. Soon after, his eyes landed on the fountain in front of him. Icy spirit frozen fountain. Xiaoyan's heart shook. The fountain in front of him was the icy spirit frozen fountain that he had been bitterly searching for. The fountain water was undoubtedly the icy spirit frozen liquid. Immediately, Xiaoyan's face involuntarily revealed a fanatical expression. The final main ingredient to refine the icy spirit pill had appeared in front of him. It could be said that it was within reach. What are you doing here? Get lost. Lung Bingshuang's pretty face turned cold when she saw Xiaoyan arrive. Her tone was especially cold as she cried out. However, the fountain in the middle of the place suddenly began to churn intensely the moment Lung Bingshuang's words sounded. Boiling bubbles surged out from deep within the fountain. The moment they burst on the surface of the water, a large amount of cold air was released. It was like a white fog that swiftly spread. It was fine if there was only a small amount of cold fog. However, the cold fog that had appeared in front of Xiaoyan and Lung Bingshuang swiftly covered the surface of the fountain. The fog was so dense that it even blocked Lung Bingshuang's sight. Damn it! The frequency of the fountain erupting has been increasing recently. Lung Bingshuang's heart suddenly sank when she saw this scene. She hurriedly unleashed the remaining energy within her body and formed an energy barrier that covered the periphery of the fountain in an attempt to block the spreading of the fog. Chi. Even though Lung Bingshuang's method was effective, the moment the fog came into contact with the energy barrier, a thick white fog quickly rose between the two. The originally thick energy barrier was also rapidly melting at a speed visible to the naked eye. Damn it! Lung Bingshuang's pretty face changed. Currently, her condition was not at her peak. Hence, she did not have any extra strength to continue supporting the energy barrier. If this continued, it was likely that her energy barrier would shatter soon. However, at this critical moment, Xiaoyan swiftly stepped forward from behind. Compared to Lung Bingshuang, the current Xiaoyan's condition could not be any better. The dou-qi in his body was like floodwater that had burst out of a dam as it swept out in all directions. It was mixed with a dense heavenly flame, as it once again covered the exterior of Lung Bingshuang's energy barrier. Chi. Immediately, the frighteningly high temperature swiftly dissolved the cold fog within the two layers of energy barrier. Although the cold fog was still rapidly increasing, It was likely that it would not be able to break through the energy barrier formed by the two within a short period of time. Lung Bingshuang finally breathed a long sigh of relief when she saw this scene. She turned her head as her eyes instantly turned incomparably cold. She stared at Xiao Yan and said in a frosty voice, "I've already told you to scram. Why are you still staying here?" This time, Xiao Yan's expression was relaxed. He smiled faintly and said, "If I leave, will you be able to deal with the ice spirit frozen fountain alone? Do I need a half-step emperor like you to interfere in the matters of this king?" Lung Bingshuang was enraged. The instant she raised her hand, she was just about to circulate the Genesis Qi in her body when she discovered that she no longer had even a sliver of Genesis Qi to move. "Save it. You should rest for a while in your current state. As for this thing, leave it to me." Xiao Yan smiled confidently. The worry within his heart had been completely eliminated within this short moment. His pair of dark black eyes were as calm as a deep pool in the past. His gaze stared at the pool within the energy barrier in front of him. A glint instantly flickered deep within his eyes. It flashed and disappeared. Even Lung Bingshuang did not discover it. Chapter 774. The age of the icy spirit cold spring was calculated by the size of the cold pool it formed. 1,000 years was 10 feet, 2,000 years was 20 feet, and so on. Now the cold pool that appeared in front of Xiao Yan was at least 500 feet in size. From this, it could be concluded that this cold pool had existed for at least 5,000 years. 5,000 years. It was unknown how many eras had changed. This icy spirit cold spring had existed for a very long time. It was also because of this that the value of this icy spirit cold spring was obvious. As for the current situation of the icy spirit cold spring, it was a state of overflowing energy. This meant that the icy spirit cold liquid within the cold pool had accumulated to an extremely large amount, and the energy within it was unbelievably strong. Normally speaking, overflowing energy should not occur. This was because as the age of the icy spirit cold spring increased, the energy should have spread out on its own, causing the surface area of the cold pool to gradually increase and circulate on its own, causing the energy within the icy spirit cold spring to always be in a state of balance. Logically speaking, such a situation should not occur. However, because of some people, this situation occurred in the icy spirit cold spring. Needless to say, this person was naturally Lung Bingshuang. The hinterland of Shilin should not be surrounded by towering snowy mountains. The so-called Eastern Wall was Lung Bingshuang's masterpiece. On one hand, it was to prevent the energy within the icy spirit cold spring from spreading to the entire Shilin mountain range. On the other hand, it was to hide the existence of the icy spirit cold spring to prevent it from being discovered by some powerful factions. From the fact that the hinterland of Shilin had not been invaded by outsiders, Lung Bingshuang had obviously achieved her goal of hiding the icy spirit cold spring. However, at the same time, Lung Bingshuang had also left behind an extremely serious problem. The establishment of those snowy mountains caused the energy within the icy spirit cold spring to be unable to spread outwards. This was like a basketball that was already filled with air. All of this had clearly reached its limit. Constant inflation would only increase the pressure within it. When the basketball exploded, even the thickest iron sheet would not be able to stop it. Lung Bingshuang's method was like a basketball that was filled with air, constantly inflating. Now the ice spirit cold fountain basketball had reached the point where it was about to explode. Once the ice spirit cold fountain had a solution, at that time, it would not only be the Shilin mountain range that would suffer, even Lung Bingshuang herself would suffer quite a bit of damage because of this. However, there was no turning back for Lung Bingshuang's actions. The establishment of those snowy peaks had caused the energy within the icy spirit cold spring to become increasingly vigorous. The direct result of this was that the energy that was constantly accumulating in the cold pool would erupt out uncontrollably. In the past, Lung Bingshuang could still forcefully suppress it. However, as time passed after so many years, the energy that had accumulated in the icy spirit cold spring had reached an extremely terrifying level. Not to mention that Lung Bingshuang was not in her best state at the moment. Even if she was at her peak, she might not be able to suppress the energy within the cold pool. At this moment, the cold mist that was gushing outwards was only a small beginning. When the energy within the cold pool completely erupted, It would be truly terrifying. The reason why Lung Bingshuang had berated Xiao Yan earlier was probably because she knew what was going to happen next. Get out of here. Don't think that you have the ability to resolve this matter, just because you have temporarily blocked the cold mist. You are merely borrowing the power of the heavenly flame. If you don't want to die, hurry up and get out of here. Lung Bingshuang clenched her silver teeth. Her beautiful face was filled with anger as she berated Xiao Yan once again, hoping that Xiao Yan would leave this place. After all, facing the continuous eruption of the cold pool, even she was becoming less and less confident that she could withstand it. Plop. However, the moment Lung Bingshuang's words left her mouth, a crack suddenly appeared on the energy barrier behind her. Immediately, a gust of cold air spurted out and spread out. Lung Bingshuang, who was the closest, was the first to bear the brunt. The long dress on her back was quickly covered by ice. In the blink of an eye, the dress on Lung Bingshuang's body was completely frozen. Her entire body seemed to be sealed under a layer of ice, unable to move. Upon seeing this, Xiao Yan's expression involuntarily changed slightly. Just as he was about to act, the crack on the energy barrier behind him grew larger and larger. Seeing that the energy barrier was about to shatter, Xiao Yan had no time to care about Lung Bingshuang in front of him. He hurriedly moved, waving his sleeve. Vigorous heavenly flames immediately spewed out, covering the sky as they pounced forward, once again blocking the cold mist. At the same time, Lung Bingshuang was struggling with all her might, continuously squeezing out the remaining traces of power in the cells in her body. It was only at a certain moment, after exhausting all her strength, that Lung Bingshuang forcefully condensed a thumb-sized ball of Genesis Qi within the vortex. This little bit of Genesis Qi was naturally unable to do anything in a battle, but at this moment, it was enough for Lung Bingshuang to shatter the layer of ice on the surface of her body. With a thought, the thumb-sized ball of Genesis Qi rapidly surged out along the meridians in her body. At the same time, Xiao Yan swiftly retreated with a grave expression. Guyu sensed that there was a tremendous force rapidly surging out from the depths of the ice spirit cold spring. The energy barrier was about to collapse. In the face of such a force, even Xiao Yan could only temporarily avoid it. The layer of cold ice on the surface of Lung Bingshuang's body also broke when Xiao Yan's body rushed back. Even her dress, which was covered by the cold ice, was shattered. The cold ice shattered and immediately turned into a pile of fragments. They fell down with a clear cracking sound. Immediately, Lung Bingshuang's snow-white lovely body was completely exposed to the air. At the same time, Xiao Yan's body also arrived in front of Lung Bingshuang, intending to bring her away from this place. However, the scene that suddenly appeared in front of him caused Xiao Yan, who had just flashed over, to instantly become dull. Xiao Yan's old face quickly turned boiling hot at the sight of the curvaceous and beautiful body in front of him. Lung Bingshuang also recovered her senses the moment the ice shattered, but it was too late. Because she had exhausted all the Genesis Qi in her body, a feeling of emptiness spread throughout her body, and she almost fell to the ground. Boom! However, in the next moment, one could hear a muffled thunder-like sound. The energy barrier that covered the entire cold pool was instantly shattered. Cold fog swiftly spread as a towering water pillar shot out from deep within the cold pool. Countless number of extremely cold water droplets scattered and swiftly shot across the interior of the ice palace. The sudden appearance of this scene caused Xiao Yan to instantly recover. He bitterly clenched his teeth and could not be bothered about anything else in his heart. He hurriedly took 2 steps forward, extended both of his hands, and pulled the naked Lung Bingshuang into his embrace. Following the exclamation from Lung Bingshuang's mouth, a large black robe wrapped around the both of them. Xiao Yan's feet moved. The sky extinction steps was unleashed to its limit. His entire body was even faster than lightning. Within the blink of an eye, he had disappeared from the side of this cold pool. Chapter 775. The extremely cold water pillar broke through the layers of thick ice at the top of the ice palace, finally bursting out of the snow and breaking through the thick white mist above Shilin's hinterland. Only when it saw the blazing sun in the sky did it stop. The water pillar exploded with a bang, turning into a torrential downpour that sprinkled throughout Shilin's hinterland. Wherever the cold rain fell, the ground instantly turned to ice. Shilin's hinterland, which was already covered in snow all year round, instantly felt even colder. Below, the icy lake in the ice palace was filled with cold mist. Through the huge hole directly above the lake, waves of biting cold wind rushed in from the outside world like a group of bandits, quickly plundering the ice palace. Xiao Yan's figure suddenly stood in the ice room where he had met Lung Bingsheng for the first time at a certain spot within the ice palace. At this moment, Xiao Yan was holding the weak Lung Bingshuang in his arms. Her originally soft and delicate body appeared even more delicate in the current situation. Her snow-white body emitted an even whiter light in the ice palace, as if she had just bathed in milk. Large patches of spring were exposed to the cold air. Without the support of Genesis Qi, how could her body withstand such extreme cold? Lung Bingshuang's face rapidly paled, and her delicate body could not help but tremble. The beauty in Xiao Yan's arms involuntarily reached out to hug Xiao Yan's arms, her nose frantically inhaling the warm aura emitted from Xiao Yan's body. If an ordinary person were to see this manner, they would definitely be unable to restrain a smile, and be unable to control their own emotions. Even the current Xiao Yan could not help but feel an intense surge in his heart. Fortunately, however, it was ultimately forcefully suppressed by him. However, at this moment Lung Bingshuang, who was in Xiao Yan's arms, clearly sensed that something was wrong with Xiao Yan's body. She instantly sobered up, and her pale face immediately flushed red. As if she had suddenly regained her strength, she hurriedly struggled out of Xiao Yan's arms. Her smooth feet retreated 2 steps on the icy ground, and she was even more shocked to find that she was completely exposed to the man's gaze. Cough cough. Xiao Yan hurriedly withdrew his gaze. At the same time, he waved his large hand and hurriedly took out a black robe of his from his storage ring. He carelessly handed it to Lung Bingshuang in front of him. The latter hurriedly received the black robe. Only after wearing the black robe did she raise her eyes to look at Xiao Yan with a flushed face. Cough cough that. I didn't do it on purpose. What I did just now was only to save you. Otherwise, you would have been swallowed by the energy gushing out from the icy spirit-frozen spring. Xiao Yan's face was also flushed red, and he did not even dare to lift his head to look at Lung Bingshuang. Previously, she was unable to react in time, but now that she had regained her composure, if he dared to casually look at her again, she would definitely kill him after she recovered. After Xiao Yan's words, the expression on Lung Bingshuang's beautiful face became incomparably embarrassed and angry. Although she really wanted to tear Xiao Yan apart, if she thought about it carefully, she really could not blame Xiao Yan for what happened just now. In fact, if it was not for Xiao Yan, she would have really died under the powerful energy of the icy spirit-frozen spring. Once this matter is over, you better forget everything that happened between the two of us. Otherwise, even if you escape to the ends of the earth, this prince will definitely kill you. After being silent for a long while, Lung Bingshuang's beautiful face regained its usual indifference, and her words were even more unusually cold. With regards to her words, Xiao Yan did not doubt her at all. After all, a strong practitioner like Lung Bingshuang usually disdained to lie. After Lung Bingshuang finished speaking, she prepared to move and walk towards the direction of the icy spirit-frozen spring. Now that the icy spirit-frozen spring had already erupted, if it was not stopped, then the situation would definitely become even more serious. If it was allowed to continue, the next ones to suffer would not only be the hinterland of Shilin. Ugh! However, after taking 2 steps, Lung Bingshuang's face, which had just recovered, instantly turned deathly pale once again. Her delicate body went limp and directly sat down on the ground. Upon seeing this, Xiao Yan's heart could not help but tighten a little. He wanted to step forward and support her, but the latter waved her large sleeves and stopped Xiao Yan with a cold gaze. This prince does not need you to interfere in my matters. This prince will naturally give you the icy spirit-frozen liquid after this matter is over, but now, please leave the hinterland of Shilin. Otherwise, this prince will kill you right now. Even though her body was already so weak that it was difficult for her to move, Lung Bingshuang was still unwilling to give in. In her heart, she was still the majestic and domineering king of the Shilin mountain range. Any difficulty in front of him was incomparably weak. In order to protect the Shilin mountain range, she definitely could not fall, and even more so, could not reveal any weakness, because that would be a flaw. As a king, she definitely could not allow herself to have any flaws. If you want to kill me, then wait until this matter is over. But now it is best for you to obediently stay here. As for the icy spirit frozen liquid, as I said, just leave it to me. Upon hearing Lung Bingshuang's words, not only did Xiaoyan have no intention of backing down, his tone was even more resolute as he directly agreed. With a flip of his palm, 2 jade bottles filled with elixirs appeared in Xiaoyan's palm. After delivering them to Lung Bingshuang, only then did Xiaoyan move his feet. Ignoring Lung Bingshuang's complicated gaze, in the blink of an eye, his figure transformed into a cool breeze and disappeared from this ice room. After Xiaoyan left, Lung Bingshuang's originally upright and delicate body suddenly softened. On the other side of a woman's strength was an even more fragile and delicate side. With a complicated expression in her eyes, Lung Bingshuang's heart was filled with hesitation as she stared at the 2 jade bottles filled with elixirs in front of her. After a long while, she finally clenched her silver teeth and grabbed one of the jade bottles. Without any hesitation, she poured out the elixirs within it and swiftly consumed them. Then, she coiled up her body and began to slowly refine them. On the other side, relying on the speed of the sky extinction steps, Xiaoyan had once again arrived in front of the cold pool in a short period of time. As he gazed at the cold pool in front of him, the corners of Xiaoyan's mouth gradually curled into a smile. Old Gu, it's all up to you now. Heh, stinking brat, don't worry. With this old man here, nothing will go wrong. However, you really have some tricks up your sleeve. You actually thought of using such a method to swindle a girl into having a good impression of you. I'm afraid that you have swindled quite a few girls back then. Aha. Cough cough, you really don't know how to act as an old man. Hurry up and get to work. Right now, the most important thing is to settle this problem first. Xiaoyan's face was red as he softly reprimanded. He could not help but use his hand to rub his nose. After which, he moved his feet and arrived at the edge of the cold pool. Chapter 776. In the hinterland of Shilin, beside the cold pool in the underground ice palace, a black-robed figure stood in this place. His handsome face appeared incomparably white under the reflection of the cold light. From the looks of it, who else could it be other than Xiaoyan? At this moment, Xiaoyan was staring at the cold pool in front of him. He frowned slightly and could not help but feel slightly nervous. The current cold pool was very different from when Lung Bingshuang was here. The surface of the water, which was originally as smooth as a mirror, was now deeply sunken, forming a bottomless whirlpool. In particular, the center of the whirlpool was a pitch-black hole. One could not see the bottom at a glance. The water was spinning rapidly in the whirlpool. Waves of cold air were sucked in from the huge hole above and poured into the depths of the whirlpool. Old Gu, do you think we can really go down? Xiaoyan could not help but ask embarrassedly. Even with Xiaoyan's temperament, he could not help but feel nervous when he saw the bottomless whirlpool in front of him. Hehe, why are you scared? Are you afraid? Since you are scared, don't go down. In any case, the eruption of the icy spirit cold spring this time is not complete. There will be plenty of opportunities in the future. You don't lack this time, right? I just don't know how many times the girl outside can withstand such an eruption. Guyu chuckled when he heard Xiaoyan's doubtful words and deliberately teased him. You. Xiaoyan was speechless when he heard Guyu's words. He pursed his lips and smiled helplessly. All right, tell me. How can I go down? I will listen to your arrangements. Hehe, isn't it easy to go down? You don't have to listen to my arrangements. Just jump down from here. Guyu spoke in a seemingly careless manner. However, these words caused Xiaoyan to be stunned when he heard them. The muscles at the corner of Xiaoyan's mouth twitched uncontrollably. He cursed the old man in his heart. The terror of this icy spirit cold fountain was something that he had personally experienced. Faced with the strength from earlier, Xiaoyan did not think that he had the ability to contend with it. Now he was actually asked to jump down. Was that not no different from seeking death? It should be known that the reason he dared to come here alone was because he had Guyu behind him. Otherwise, he would not have dared to come here and throw away his life. Hehe, little fellow, don't worry. With me around, I guarantee that you will be safe. Guyu could not help but laugh in his heart when he saw Xiaoyan's hesitation. He immediately withdrew his joking tone and solemnly spoke. Hearing this, Xiaoyan finally became certain in his heart. It seemed that this old man was indeed not lying to him. However, it was likely that no one would be able to make him jump down without any preparation. Xiaoyan carefully extended his head to look at the enormous whirlpool in front of him. He felt a little afraid in his heart. However, at this moment, an invisible foot heavily kicked his buttocks from behind. Xiaoyan's heart was greatly startled as his body fell uncontrollably into the whirlpool. What a dilly-dallying! Guyu's somewhat illusory body finally revealed itself beside the cold pool. He helplessly shook his head and shrugged his shoulders, after which he suddenly disappeared with a bang. In the next moment, a fierce dense white heavenly flame rose from the surface of Xiaoyan's body the moment his body fell into the whirlpool. It protected Xiaoyan's body while its frighteningly high temperature isolated the spring water. In front of Guyu, this icy spirit cold spring was indeed nothing. Even though it had existed for 5,000 years, this so-called advantage was nothing in the face of absolute strength. The entire pool flowed downwards in a straight line. With the isolation of the bone-chilling flame, Xiaoyan was not eroded by the extremely cold spring water. This caused him to rejoice in his heart as he quickly moved and dived deeper into the pool. Without the pressure created by the spring water, Xiaoyan's speed was not hindered by the slightest. Within a short moment, he had already descended a couple of thousand feet. However, it appeared that he was far from reaching the end of the pool. The depths of his sight were still pitch black. No life could be seen in this deep pool. This place appeared deathly silent. The deeper he dived, the larger the space became. The surrounding world was filled with icy blue spring water. There was only pitch-black darkness at the end of his sight. No light could be seen. At a certain moment, Xiaoyan even lost his sense of direction. If it were not for Guyu's guidance, it was likely that he would have been lost in this deep pool. Time gradually passed as Xiaoyan dived deeper. This long dive took Xiaoyan an hour. However, the surrounding world was still pitch black in the end. At this moment, even with the isolation of the bone-chilling flame, Xiaoyan could still sense the iciness of the surrounding spring water. Of course, he did not know that this was done on purpose by Guyu. Guyu's objective was naturally to use the extremely cold spring water to keep Xiaoyan in an extremely clear-headed state. This would prevent the emotions at the bottom of his heart from destroying his original objective of coming here. In this endless dive, Xiaoyan gradually lost track of how long he had dived and how deep he had gone. He could only guarantee that his direction was not wrong as well as his initial goal in the bottom of his heart. The surrounding world became increasingly pitch black. Xiaoyan seemed to have lost his sense of this space. He was like a helpless bird in the night sky. He could neither go nor retreat. Time was like flowing water around him as it rapidly passed by Xiaoyan. An icy temperature enveloped Xiaoyan's entire body. The bone-chilling flame seemed to be unable to hold on any longer. Xiaoyan had reached the end of his journey. Even though he had not seen any valuable results, he could no longer continue diving. Xiaoyan's body stopped in the water. He could clearly feel the temperature of the spring water through the thick white flame. Without the protection of the heavenly flame, he might have frozen to death in an instant. Even if such an outcome would not occur for the time being, if Xiaoyan were to continue diving, such an outcome would be possible. Should he continue diving or choose to give up? Between perseverance and his life, Xiaoyan had to make a choice. In the end, Xiaoyan mobilized all the dou qi in his body. With a thought, a brilliant heavenly flame rose from the surface of his body. It was like a blooming flower in this dark and cold world, releasing brilliant colors. Furthermore, it was the only blazing flower in this pitch-black and cold world. Xiaoyan moved once again, and continued heading deeper into the spring water. Guyu revealed a satisfied smile in Xiaoyan's heart. The coldness around Xiaoyan's body also swiftly faded. It was as if all the coldness had been diluted by this brilliant flower. Little did he know that he wasn't as strong as he had imagined. It was just that there was someone who had silently shouldered all of this for him. Time flew by quickly. Even though Xiaoyan's movements were not slow, it was impossible to distinguish them in this pitch-black world. Finally, at a certain moment, a starlight suddenly flashed at the edge of Xiaoyan's sight as he continued diving. Even though it disappeared in a flash, it was like a beautiful sunset in Xiaoyan's eyes. It lingered in his mind for a long time. Chapter 777. At the bottom of the cold pool within the ice palace. At this moment, Xiaoyan was standing in the extremely cold spring water. Fortunately, with the isolation of the heavenly flame, Xiaoyan was not eroded by the spring water. A shocked glint was revealed in Xiaoyan's dark black eyes. He was staring at the enormous ice block in front of him, which was the size of a small mountain. His mouth was wide open and he appeared to be stunned. There was no need to describe the shock in his heart. At this moment, the thing that was suspended in front of Xiaoyan was an incomparably large piece of cold ice. Looking from a distance, this piece of cold ice was like a stalagmite. Its sharp end was pointed upward. The lower one was the larger its size. From Xiaoyan's current position, he was unable to see the roots of this ice mountain at a glance. One could imagine just how large the size of this piece of cold ice was. The cold spring water swiftly withdrew beside Xiaoyan. Light flowed and finally turned into Guyu's figure. "Old Gu, what is this?" Xiaoyan opened his mouth slightly. His voice was somewhat astringent as he asked. "Unexpectedly, I really did not expect that there would really be an extreme cold ice soul here. Moreover, it is 5,000 years old. TSK, this is a peerless treasure." Guyu, who had appeared, also looked at the boundless enormous ice mountain in front of him with shock in his old eyes. The words from his mouth had already revealed the shock in his heart. "Extreme cold ice soul, old Gu, what is this?" Xiaoyan frowned. His eyes involuntarily swept over the enormous ice block in front of him. Guyu by the side nodded gently. He immediately explained to Xiaoyan. "Extreme cold ice soul. This is something that has a certain chance of appearing only in the core area of the icy spirit cold spring. Moreover, it can only appear under certain special environmental conditions. This ice soul is agglomerated from the purest energy of the icy spirit cold spring. Its ability is many times stronger than the spring water. Even if this thing is thrown into a heavenly flame, it will not be an easy task to refine it. With it, your chances of swallowing a heavenly flame in the future will greatly increase. This thing will be of great help in raising your strength." The expression in Xiaoyan's eyes hardened when he heard this. He had heard from Guyu that the icy spirit cold liquid had a great suppressive effect on all flames in the world. However, he did not expect that the effect of this extreme cold ice soul would be several times that of the icy spirit cold liquid. If Xiaoyan could obtain it and use it to refine a heavenly flame, would it not be an easy task? "Little brat, don't think too much. Do you really think that you have all the good things in the world? How powerful is a heavenly flame? It is the most overbearing energy in the world. How can it be easily suppressed by this ice soul? Even if it can be suppressed, it will only be possible if the entire ice soul is used. Otherwise, do you really think that the reputation of a heavenly flame is just a bluff?" Xiaoyan was startled. He immediately smiled embarrassedly. That's right. Ever since he had swallowed a heavenly flame, anyone who saw the flame in his hand would reveal a shocked expression. The strength of a heavenly flame was renowned throughout the continent. Since ancient times, a heavenly flame had been a symbol of strength. Even a small flame would cause countless people to fight over it. From this point alone, one could tell that the strength of a heavenly flame was not undeserved. Although this ice soul was extraordinary, the strength of a heavenly flame was much greater than that of a natural object. Even if one wanted to suppress it, it was likely impossible unless one had an advantage in numbers. However, Xiaoyan lifted his head and looked at the enormous ice soul in front of him. He recalled what Guyu had said a moment ago. If one wished to suppress a heavenly flame, one would have to use the entire ice soul, not to mention using it to suppress the heavenly flame. Even trying to move it away was an impossible task. Cough cough, old Gu. What should we do now? We can't just sit here and watch. I don't think that I have the ability to move it away. Xiaoyan curled his lips and helplessly shrugged his shoulders as he looked at the enormous ice soul in front of him. Stinking brat, you are dreaming. You want to move it away? Forget about you. Even this old man does not have the ability to do so. Guyu involuntarily cursed at Xiaoyan, not knowing whether to laugh or cry after hearing his words. Soon after, Guyu continued without waiting for Xiaoyan to speak. Brat, have you forgotten why we have entered this place? Xiaoyan was startled. His expression immediately brightened as he hurriedly replied. It is to quell the energy riot within the icy spirit cold fountain. That's right, but do you know how to quell it? Will old Gu please explain? Xiaoyan immediately displayed a respectful appearance after returning to the main topic. He cupped his hands together respectfully to Guyu and spoke with a serious expression. Heh, stinking brat. Why do you immediately become normal when this matter concerns that girl? Xiaoyan's face turned red after teasing Guyu. Guyu shook his head and said, My original plan was to use the icy spirit cold fountain. My original plan was to use the bone-chilling flame to consume a portion of the energy in the core of the icy pool. This way, the energy within the icy spirit cold spring would be in a state of lack. Naturally, there would be no reason for the icy pool to riot. However, from the looks of it now, there is no need for us to do so. A smile appeared on Guyu's old face when he spoke. He lifted his eyes and swept them over the enormous ice soul in front of him. A glint flickered deep within his old eyes. Xiaoyan by the side involuntarily frowned when he saw this scene. He swiftly thought about it in his heart, and the muscles on the corner of his eyes involuntarily twitched. In his heart, he wondered if this old man in front of him was really thinking about this extreme cold ice soul. I have indeed taken a fancy to this ice soul. After all, this thing is the energy crystal of the icy spirit cold fountain. Its value is much higher than this spring water. Guyu turned his head and spoke to Xiaoyan with a smile. He seemed to have seen through Xiaoyan's thoughts. Even if this is the case, we have no way of moving it away, right? Who asked you to move it away? It is the same idea as I had earlier. We will reduce a portion of the energy on this ice soul. At that time, the energy of the icy spirit cold fountain will naturally gather here, and do its best to repair the energy that the ice soul has lost. This way, the icy spirit cold fountain will remain in a stable state, and the riot will be resolved. As for the method, all we need to do is to remove a piece of this ice soul. Guyu smiled. His somewhat illusory body leisurely arrived in front of the enormous ice soul. He extended his hand and slowly placed it on the surface of the ice soul, while being wrapped by the bone-chilling flame. Xiaoyan also understood Guyu's intention from behind. It seemed that Guyu had already planned to start with this ice soul the moment they arrived. This would eliminate the hidden danger of the energy riot of the icy spirit cold fountain, and help Xiaoyan obtain a piece of ice soul. It could be said to be the best of both worlds. Xiaoyan looked at Guyu's back as he thought of this. His heart involuntarily felt a little touched. Guyu had done too much for him along the way. Although the two of them had not really interacted much, the relationship between the two of them had already reached an extremely close stage. Perhaps from a certain point of view, the current Guyu was just like Yao Lao back then. Xiaoyan's throat rolled as he stared at Guyu's back. It was a long while later before he quietly said in his heart, Old Gu, thank you for this journey.